Taxation Committee. Ms. Anuradha Thakur will be joining us shortly. She is Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs. And before we begin with the formal proceedings of the session, may I please request Mr. Anand Goenka, President FICCI, to felicitate the esteemed dignitaries on the dais by presenting green certificates. Sir, I request you to kindly present the green certificate to Mr. Vualnam, Secretary, Department of Expenditure, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. May I also request you to kindly present the green certificate to Mr. M. Nagaraju, Secretary, Department of Financial Services, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and green certificate to Mr. Arvind Shrivastava, Secretary, Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. Thank you so much. May I now request Ms. Jyoti Vich, Director General FICCI, to kindly take forward the proceedings and moderate this interactive session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, and a very warm welcome to this interactive session on the Union Budget 26-27 with the senior government officials, the 4 secretaries, who are already 3 secretaries present here. We are shortly expecting the Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, to join in as well. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time to share the insights of the budget with all of us. May I now request Secretary, Department of Expenditure, Mr. Vualnam, for his comments, please. My bad. I'm extremely sorry. We'll start with the welcome address by our President, Mr. Anand Goenka.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Mr. Vualnam, Secretary, Department of Expenditure, Mr. Nagaraju, Secretary, Department of Financial Services. We await Ms. Anuradha Thakur, Mr. Arvind Shrivastava, Secretary, Department of Revenue, colleagues from the industry, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and a very warm welcome to you all. At the outset, on behalf of FICCI, I would like to place on record our sincere appreciation to the entire team at the Ministry of Finance for presenting an excellent union budget. Against the backdrop of a challenging external environment, the budget provides reassurance through policy clarity, reform continuity, and a steady focus on macroeconomic stability. By staying firmly on the path of fiscal consolidation while sustaining a strong push to public capital expenditure, the government has sent an important signal of policy stability, which is a key factor in long-term investments. We particularly welcome the strong thrust on manufacturing, both in strategic, technology-intensive sectors and in traditional, labor-intensive, export-oriented industries. The focus on electronics, semiconductors, capital goods, chemicals, clean technologies, along with support for MSMEs and a sustained investment in infrastructure will collectively drive higher growth, job creation, and enhance India's global competitiveness. What is also reassuring is the continuity of reforms. The pace of reforms seen over the past year has been sustained and reinforced in this budget. Our industry members are eagerly looking forward to hearing from you and getting detailed insights on the contours of the budget. I would like to highlight some of the key areas where we would like to seek your guidance and further insights. The announcement of a high-level committee on banking is a very significant step. Industry sees this as an opportunity to further strengthen the financial architecture needed to support India's growth ambitions. We would be keen to understand how the role of the private sector is being envisaged in the work for this committee. especially given the very positive experience of industry engagement in the high-level committee on non-financial regulatory reforms. The budget also reflects a substantial increase in government borrowings to support capital expenditure. The industry fully appreciates the growth impulse this provides. At the same time, we would value your perspective on how fiscal policy and government's borrowing plans are being calibrated to ensure a balanced macroeconomic environment, particularly in terms of inflation management and interest rate stability. Another very interesting and forward-looking proposal is the plan to improve city infrastructure through the mapping of city economic regions, to be implemented in challenge mode with reforms-linked, results-based financial mechanism. This is a novel approach, and we would be delighted to hear more about how this challenge framework will operate in practice, particularly the kinds of reform indicators envisaged for cities. Finally, the strong thrust on capex is widely welcomed. Some major schemes now place greater responsibility on states for implementing and financing. We would appreciate your views on how center-state coordination will be further strengthened to ensure smooth execution and sustained outcomes of these schemes across the country. In closing, I would say that this budget reflects a very consistent and well-calibrated approach across successive years. The direction and intent are clear to steadily move India towards the vision of Viksit Bharat. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you, and we look forward to an engaging and insightful interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, President, for highlighting some of the salient points of the budget and how it has really positively likely to impact the growth. May I now request Shri Arvind Srivastavaji, Secretary, Department of Revenue, for his address, please.
Very good morning. Shri Anant Goenka, President FICCI, and other senior officials of FICCI on the dais, the members of the Federation, senior leaders of the industry, my colleagues in the Ministry of Finance. First of all, let me thank the body FICCI to have organized this interactive session, and I noticed that it is going to happen for a much beyond this session, where you would even be having detailed technical discussions, at least on the tax side, with the members of the respective board. So I suppose, as far as the technical details of various proposals are concerned, you will be having a far more detailed discussion, granular discussion, when those sessions happen. I will take this opportunity to bring out certain kind of very basic cross-cutting ideas which have been behind some of the proposals that have been presented in the budget on the tax side. Some of these changes that are being proposed on the tax side are very structural and deep. So they may not be immediately headline grabbing, but they are the ones which will end up changing the way in which taxpayer interacts with the tax department. And this I'll try to explain through an illustration both on the direct and the indirect tax. And the thought process behind this change is, how can we change not only the way in which taxpayer interacts with the tax department, but also make the taxpayer autonomous in many ways in handling his affairs, without requiring the need for either validation or approval by the tax department. So at every stage of the process, can we have a window available to the taxpayer that he can take his own decision and move forward, rather than getting engaged with the department in a process which eventually results in issues of interpretation. It requires cost, time, and engagements of different types. The fundamental thought behind this is that we believe that the general incentive with the taxpayer is to be honest, would rather like to pay his tax dues as long as he can appreciate those to be legitimate, rather than being engaged with the department to raise a dispute and take the things forward. So this idea I like to explain through an illustration on the direct side, and then like to explain it through the way in which we are trying to rethink of the way on the indirect tax, that is customs. On the direct tax, if you look at the way in which typically engagement of a taxpayer starts with the tax department, it is through filing of the returns. The first change that has been done is that the return filing revision period has been extended by another 3 months. Seemingly innocuous. You would like to?
Warm welcome, madam. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll just continue.
These 3 months of extension given for revising your return is nothing but an opportunity to a taxpayer to patiently, calmly look at his returns and correct those if he finds something amiss. Again, the thought process is the taxpayer would like to do it on his own than being prompted or being, kind of forced through a process of the department. This period enables him by improving or correcting his returns. Naturally, the risk of him being involved in further processes, whether it is of assessment or reassessment, gets much reduced. The second change, which was done the last year, was the fact that a taxpayer has been permitted to do what one would call as updated returns for a period of 4 years, which would mean that for 4 long years, if you are collecting or getting any additional information, you are in a position to acknowledge it yourself and update your returns in a manner which again reduces the risk of you becoming engaged with the department in any kind of dispute or any kind of a process. An additional window which has been created this year is, even if a process of assessment or reassessment has been started against you, you would still be free to update your returns, and that updated return will be considered as a base for you, for the assessment officer to examine your returns. What effectively it is doing is, it is letting the taxpayer have this autonomy to get his returns corrected the way he thinks is right, and reducing the way in which the department would get involved with the process, which naturally will have both time and interpretation issues involved. At the end of the process, a very major change that has been done to bring certainty in the mind of a taxpayer and enabling him to take a decision on his own is the fact that the entire proceedings of tax department, which is assessment and penalty, have been put together. Which means when the process of assessment is complete, that is, having gone through this entire process where a taxpayer on his own could have updated his returns, and the likelihood of that process of assessment itself having got reduced, even in those few cases which end up getting into the process of assessment, you will be in a state where order by itself is available to you in a very, very transparent fashion. You know how the tax department has assessed you and what is the whatever misreporting, underreporting kind of decisions that have been taken. And the window which has been created this year is, irrespective of the type of report, misreporting or underreporting, a taxpayer is in a position to settle the dispute by paying a certain amount, depending on what category it is, without getting penalized or without getting branded as somebody who has been penalized, because those naturally have negative connotations associated with you. So even at the end of this process, a taxpayer has a choice to accept whatever he thinks is legitimate, pay up, and close the affairs as far as the tax department is concerned. So if you look at the entire arrangement, at every step, a taxpayer is being given a choice to make a decision for himself, do what is legitimately to be done, and not really get involved with the department in long drawn processes. Our expectation is, and this expectation has been proven through data, when the updated return window was opened, so far close to 1.22 crore people have done so, which is on their own. They have come up, they have just looked at the additional information they have received over the next few years of having filed the returns, and they have updated that, which has and probably paid a tax of close to 13,500 crores or more. What it shows to us and gives confidence to us is that windows of this nature, which are really creating or making it easy for the taxpayer to become compliant on his own, would be very effective, rather than having a system in which the department engages with him and forces him to go through a process which in our view may not either be efficient and also takes a lot of time and resources from the industry, which otherwise could rather spend its time doing what it can do the best, which is running its own business. Similarly, on the indirect tax, the thought process of trust in taxpayers is broadly getting reflected in an arrangement in which we have systems by which the industry today gets accredited by the department, arrangement of AEO, where we have these authorized economic operators who get certified and get some preferential treatment from the Department of Customs. The first thing we are doing is enhancing benefits under this. The second thing we are doing it, expanding the window itself and letting even manufacturers to get certain benefits which are available to these accredited agencies, obviously going through a certain process of validation. The third thing being done here is, which is very important, that an accredited agency or an accredited exporter or an importer, does he really feel the benefit of this in individual transactions that he has when he is either exporting or importing? And a whole host of changes that you would have seen in the proposals in the indirect on the customs side are essentially around the thought where can we see to it that individual transactions also are given a certain preferred handling for those entities which are otherwise accredited. In the case of customs warehouses, instead of going through a process where an individual transaction needs to be approved by the department, we are talking about an entity based, where again an entity will get audited once in a while, there will be a system of certification, and then there will be risk flags and technology to see to it that the controls which are today on a transaction basis are removed. But the discipline is essentially followed through a way in which an entity based upon the framework that we will create, will get audited or might get information on red flags which can correct on its own. Again, the effort required in processes, taking approvals, getting clearances, etc., gets really reduced. The entire thought process behind the changes both on direct and indirect tax, if you have kind of appreciated the illustrations that I have made, is basically to make the taxpayer in control of his own affairs. The taxpayer being in a position to have, and for being control of his own affairs, there are legal processes which are getting modified. There are information systems which are getting improved for him to be able to take such a decision. And the way in which the oversight of the department over the industry from individual transactions to something at the entity level is getting modified. What we expect the industry to do using these kind of, I would say, new frameworks or new architecture is basically like, if you remember, the government over the last few years has reformed the tax structures themselves. The tax rates, the simplified new regime on personal taxation, the new tax regime on the corporate taxations are all meant to see that can the process of paying taxes be simplified? Can all those issues which typically result in disputes be removed from our engagement and things become completely straight, simple and straightforward? The second step, the law itself was simplified. And the third step, we are seeing that the experiences which you have in processes, administrative processes, return filing processes, assessment and audit processes, can the same thought process be further inserted into these? So it is in a way continuity, in a way it is deepening this thought process and this vision of the government, and we hope that industry is in a position to leverage this ease in a way that resources that industry can otherwise invest in running its business do not get diverted into handling the tax matters. Apart from this core thought which has been there and which kind of runs across various announcements on both direct and indirect tax, there are certain specific tax related changes that have been made, largely to do with enhancing manufacturing or services, businesses in India, enhancing value addition happening in India, enhancing the ability of our exporters to export more, because sometimes they need to import a few things to add value and export them further. In the entire game, what we have tried to see, and two major changes that have been done, or two major announcements that have been made on the direct tax on the data centers and on the indirect tax on the SEZs, We have also tried to see that the tax structures do not create non-level playing field. And we would like to see that Indian industry and any competitor is put on the same plane, and you are in a position to compete without duty and tax structures coming in a way which creates differential treatment for different entities. So the thought process behind many of these changes is also to see to it that the tax treatments are done in a manner which is equitous and which enables you to kind of compete at the at a level which is level playing. So having said this much, I suppose individual announcements that have been made in the budget speech would be further thrashed out and discussed in the subsequent sessions with our members who will be participating in those discussions. We would also like that while we implement, a lot of these reforms will get implemented ultimately dependent on our technical systems and the ability of our officers on the ground to deliver those services. And we are very conscious of that, and we'll be making full effort to see that these intentions and these visions are reflected in real experiences on the ground. That will require a fair amount of hard work by us, but it will also require us to not just have cooperation from all of you, but to have an equal partnership. So I would really appreciate that organization like yours does come back to us and suggest as to, while implementing these measures, what is it that can be done better to see to it the underlying vision and the thought behind it is properly delivered on the ground. I hope that all of you would apply yourself to that, and I also expect to see practical, constructive ideas coming back to us which will help in improving the way in which we implement these decisions. Once again, I'll thank you for having organized this workshop, and I wish all the very best for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing the ethos behind the budget. And indeed, the compliances improvement has been a progressive measure by the government, and this year also there's been a lot of easing of the processes and the compliances that has been done. May I, with these words, request our President to kindly felicitate Ms. Anuradha Thakur with a green certificate. Thank you so much. May I now invite Secretary, Department of Expenditure, Mr. Vualnam, for his address, please.
All of you, good morning, and it's a real pleasure to be here in front of all of you. I start with warm greetings to the President of FICCI, Sri Anant Goenka. Greetings also to the Senior Vice President FICCI, who is on the dais, Sri Vijay Shankar, and the Director General of FICCI, Ms. Jyoti Viz, who is conducting our program, and all the distinguished participants in this FICCI program. And also my greetings this morning to my colleagues from the Ministry of Finance, who have been working tirelessly in this entire budget making exercise. It's an honor for us to be interacting with the group from the FICCI. We are extremely happy with the budget that has been announced by the Honorable Finance Minister, and just a few words that I may like to share with all of you. You know, I start by highlighting the focus on fiscal prudence that the government has placed in drafting, in finalizing this union budget, and the focus on that fiscal prudence, the macroeconomic stability that we are able to maintain, not just in this immediate period, but over the last some years now, I think is something which stands us in good stead, especially at a time when the global environment has so many uncertainties. The things like that inflation is moderate, you know, it may not be headline grabbing, but really for all of you from the industry, for us from the governmental sector, you know, it's something which is really important at a time like this. The fiscal deficit being within the glide path that has been announced by the government, our ability to abide by that, and our ability to provide the resources where the programs and projects require them. I think these are all very important. I'd like to start with that. And the summary of all that is to say that our stewardship of the public monies is taken with utmost seriousness. I think in one sentence, that is what I would like to assure to all of you from industry, from private sector, that it's something we look at, we work with utmost seriousness, our stewardship of the public monies. Where the funds are required, where the funds are justified, we provide, and where they are not required or where they may not be justified, they are not provided. So that very clear-headed approach is something which has been guiding the budget making, which is the guidance we get from the higher levels, and that is what I think will really carry the country forward as we have the aspiration for the Viksit Bharat. Second point, the capex was mentioned, and indeed capex is again, I can say, a second pillar in the budget making process that is very much in a clear focus. The provisions have gone up, and that is based on the very satisfying outcome that we have seen in the various infrastructure sectors that have been supported over the last several years, and we are confident that those infrastructure sectors are geared up, will be able to build up the infrastructure that our country much requires. And in fact, beyond what we do directly at the central government level, if you read the details, we also provide support to the states for their capital investment, what in short we call the SASCI, SASCI, and that has also been hiked up to rupees 2 lakh crore this year. And it not only provides the 2 lakh crore rupees directly to them, but also incentivizes them to prioritize capital investment with their own resources. So we give an incentive when they increase their capital investments from their own resources by 10% every year. So it's a multiplier kind of effect that we are looking at on capex. And really, when we talk capex, it's something where all of you from private sector and all of me and my colleagues from public sector work together. Even in its simplest, even in EPC projects, it's a private party and a public party that works together. And in fact, as of today, we look at much more complex partnerships where we have sharing of financing, we have sharing of the risks, and sharing of the various other maintenance responsibilities, quality responsibilities, and many other things. So the capex program is really something where we really value the contribution that all of you have done, and we are confident that that is something we will move ahead very successfully with. My third and last point, in the years past, when the budget speech is made, probably for all of you, your focus is really on part B of the budget speech, where all the taxes and those matters are brought up. But I would urge you that now is the time that it will be something that will miss if you don't focus on the part A, because part A today really reflects the intention of government to work together with private sector, to work together with industry, to work together everyone. In fact, it's a whole of country kind of an approach. So just to give an example, you may wonder, let's just mention one, for example, in the Semiconductor Mission 2.0, which was announced in the budget this time. If you go back and think of the Semiconductor 1.0, where government from its side provided rupees 76,000 crore rupees, was really a support to the industry. It was an offer to the private project proponents to come forward with semiconductor projects, and they have come forward. Different states have supported, land has been provided. In fact, states have even supplemented the financing, and really in that part A budget announcement, there has been a very promising public sector and private sector partnership, and several others which are there. So really, I end by urging all of you to look at the part A of the budget speech. In fact, not just of this year, maybe you would like to go back to the last year's budget speech, part A, and there are so many things where all of us can work together, a whole of government, a whole of country approach as we move confidently towards our Viksit Bharat ambition. So thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you so much, sir, for indeed the expenditure is the toughest job that you have in the government because you have to spend very carefully. And thank you for sharing your insights and views. May I request Ms. Anuradha Thakur, Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, for your views, ma'am. Your address, please.
Distinguished representatives of industry associations, business leaders, colleagues from government, and friends. It is a pleasure to address this very distinguished gathering of industry associations today. Industry associations such as yours, FICCI, has played and will continue to play a very vital role in shaping India's economic narrative
the aggregate enterprise level experience that you bring to bear, how you interact with us all the time, flagging emerging challenges, and partner with government, a phrase that my colleague Secretary Expenditure has mentioned, as well as the Secretary Revenue who was speaking when I came in. It is with that spirit of partnership that we have been working for the last decade, and we intend to continue that way. Today, the Indian economy continues to demonstrate strong macroeconomic resilience. Despite a global environment which has uncertainty, a great deal of the uncertainty which has dropped today morning, but we all work in the global systems, we are interconnected. In that, India stands out as a macroeconomically strong country in the world today. So the sound macroeconomic fundamentals, very calibrated and credible fiscal management that the government has demonstrated, and a stable financial system. This is what has enabled us to maintain and sustain growth. And taking forward, we would like to continue with consistency and commitment on the path that was undertaken 10-12 years back. For industry, we recognize that this stability and this credibility is vital. This enables long-term investment decisions and provides a strong foundation to strengthen our growth trajectory. We, on the government side, remain committed to maintaining fiscal discipline consistently without compromising on social and developmental priorities. In line with accepted standards of fiscal management, the declining debt to GDP ratio from 56.1% last year to 55.6%. This is expected to gradually free up resources for priority sector expenditure by reducing interest outgoes as well. The fiscal deficit, as you all know, which is a key operational instrument for debt targeting, for this year has been set at 4.3. Though the anticipated market borrowings, this has been something that has been coming up, is 17 lakh crores, I will just reiterate that a large amount of it, 5.5 lakh crores this year, is on account of redemptions which are coming up in this year. So the issuances through dated securities will remain at 11.73, which is expected to reduce long-term rates. In this budget, our approach has been very clear. The three kartavyas that Honorable Finance Minister laid down in the budget speech emphasize the core thinking behind the budget. We aim at building an ecosystem that maintains and sustains the momentum of the structural reforms that have been going on in the country at the central government level and in partnership with the states. We understand that a resilient financial sector is the key lubricant for growth, and we also emphasize the leveraging of the cutting edge and emerging technologies. We have built up a very sound system through the AI mission, through the quantum mission, of enhancing our compute capacity, of enhancing our infrastructure around this. We hope to take it forward in terms of utilizing technology for public service delivery and for improving systems that will lend scale to economic growth. Manufacturing remains the backbone of India's economic growth, and we have emphasized that strongly in this budget as well, identifying and carefully selecting the sectors which we feel are strategic, which are frontier sectors, and in which we will continue to need the support of industry as a key partner to take forward this vision of the Government of India. For example, in the biopharma sector. The biopharma sector, as you know, is a sector which needs support of the government because of the very nature that the initial discovery and development takes a long time. We are standing there before you for you to take a part in that and take advantage of the opening that has been made through emphasis on that sector. In the pharma world, what my colleagues in the pharma department told me, that in the next 5 to 7 years, we face what is called a patent cliff, with 55 to 70 odd patented drugs falling off patent. showing us a huge opportunity in the creation of biosimilars. Similarly, I had mentioned yesterday also chemical parks, as also the labor-intensive textile manufacturing sector. A very detailed 5 component-wise, Honorable FM has emphasized in that. Even so, the legacy industrial clusters which exist in the country, 200 of them have been identified. The identification will happen in challenge mode, but it has been set aside that we would like to upgrade technology and infrastructure to basically focus on competitiveness and productivity. The budget, if you see it, not between the lines, but if you read each and every line very carefully, of a very, I would say, tight and crisp budget speech document, every line will tell you that we are focusing on enhancing competencies, of enhancing competitiveness, as well as productivity, all of the things that matter to your bottom line and our bottom line. And together, collaboratively, we hope to take forward India. To borrow a phrase from the speech, keeping Atmanirbharta as a lodestar. So I would like you all to step forward, try and take advantage of what the budget offers, and even outside of the budget. Before the budget, after the budget, the reforms will continue to move on. I hope to continue the interaction with all of you all. We hope to hear from you all, because that is how we can improve our collaboration from time to time. An example of that is the Infrastructure Risk Guarantee Fund, which we have announced in this budget. It has been an ask of government, of industry for a while, especially in infrastructure sector, to look after and take care of the guarantee of the risks that appear pre-construction and pre-commissioning. So here is an instrument that we have announced in the budget speech, which will help to guarantee that risk, so that the lenders and all of you all participating in that industry can go forward confidently. Similarly, if you have noticed that for MSMEs, while our commitment to micro enterprises remains strong, they are the largest number in the MSME space, and we will continue to, with an enhanced outlay, continue to support them. But small and medium enterprises, which would be part of, I would assume that some of you from here, in this hall, would be from medium enterprises, or would have medium and small enterprises as a very core part of your supply chains. So we have actually separated it as a class for support through a 10,000 crore fund, so that the supply chain becomes more resilient, and through a multi-pronged approach with equity support, with professional support, which will also create capacity amongst our youth across the country, as well as many measures on the TREADS platform, which will help settlement of pending bills, which will help settlement of discounted and non-discounted bills. So we've gone into great detail to enable unlocking of various systems in the entire value chain, so that industries can move forward confidently, can move forward smoothly. Together with Part B, as Secretary Expenditure mentioned, that the attention is normally that, but if you see the budget, and especially this document which is on our website called the key features of the budget, the way that has been arranged is to show thematically what appears in Part A and what is the supporting Part B, which is the tax element, together how it will help industry, together how it will help farmers, together how it will help different segments of society. So I will not take too much longer, because the budget is quite detailed. It shows the emphasis both on the manufacturing side, a lot on the infrastructure side. Very large infrastructure projects have been announced outside of the traditional, I would say, road sector, which the outlay of which has also been enhanced into inland waterways, 20 new national waterways over 5 years, coastal shipping, as well as high-speed rails. 7 high-speed rails announced all at once in this budget. The dedicated freight DFC which has been announced, which from east to west, which I would assume would also be quite important in cutting costs, providing mobility. With that, I would just end saying that do take advantage of the various openings that the budget has made. Do collaborate with us in bringing in your muscle power, your power into taking the economy forward along with us, And I believe that dialogue between industry and government needs to remain strong, needs to remain, communication channels from both sides need to remain open. And I would like to thank FICCI and the President FICCI, Jyoti, all of you all on the dais here for enabling those dialogues such as today, and so that we remain close with our ears to the ground and you feel that you have access to government to take ahead your concerns as well as the points that you all face in your day-to-day running of business. With that, I wish all of us here a very powerful, economically strong year ahead. With that, thank you so much. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Indeed, the spirit behind the budget of enhancing competencies, competitiveness and productivity, the 3 points you share really clearly comes out. May I now request Mr. M. Nagaraju, the Secretary, Department of Financial Services, for his address, please. We'll take a few questions after this, so those of you who would want to ask, please stay ready with that. So.
Good morning, Mr. Anand Goenka, President FICCI, Mr. Vijay Shankar, Vice President, and Vijay, DG FICCI, and distinguished members of the FICCI and other delegates, and my colleagues from the Ministry of Finance. As my colleagues have mentioned, I am also delighted to be here and to speak on the good points of the budget making. But before that, let me also note today we are actually good day. One of the dark clouds of uncertainty from the world economy has been lifted with both our Prime Minister Trump tweeting about the trade deal. I think this should cheer you up, but still it's not, many of you are not cheerful. I was, no, because we have been, ever since this 50% tariffs were raised, both finance and commerce have been working with our industry to mitigate this adverse impact of the tariffs. We all remember we come up with one credit guarantee scheme for exporters. And we also approved little more than 4,000 loan applications for that. And we disbursed little more than 1,500 crores for those industry. I think now with back to 18%, I think our industry can feel a sigh of relief about certainty now. Now, having said that, let me, now my colleagues, both Secretary Expenditure and Secretary DA and Secretary Revenue have mentioned the strong emphasis on infrastructure development and robust allocations on infrastructure, both for central government and the transfers to the state government. Now, the industry naturally require the financial systems to support you. Not just the entire thing you are going to invest is only equity. You also take debt and loans. So for that we have our banking system is now very robust. I think perhaps all of you heard the Honorable Finance Minister's words on describing the banking system. We are doing, in both public and private sector banks are doing extremely well. We are robust. We have good capital accretion, and our lending was good. We have lent almost about 12% credit growth, and PSB growth is higher, and deposit growth is about 10%. And we are in a good state of affairs on the banking sector. And let me also tell you, for the first time for many years, in fact, the credit growth to MSME sectors has reached 17%, which is very, very high. And we always hear the complaint that the credit gap to MSME sectors is widening, which is, in fact, some reports say anywhere between 30 to 35 lakh crore. But we are trying to bridge that gap for MSME credit growth. And coming to the one, I just want to tell you about MSME. I think all of you some of you must be belonging to this MSME. Now, MSME provide about 60% of total workforce, I think, in the private sector. I think that all of you know. And 45% of total merchandise exports from India. And without while services are celebrated for their exports, but we should also remember, we also export hugely the merchandise to large number of countries. It's not just America alone. America remains our single most important trading partner, but we also export it to large number of countries in the world, and it's a diversified product. So that is very important to support MSMEs. Let me also give you a number. You know, our the provision coverage ratio, PCR we call, the whatever loans we give, credit we extend, how much we have actually covered? We have actually now we reach about almost 94%. See, that is very good buffers to cover. So our NPAs declined to last quarter to 0.45. 0.45. This is the lowest ever again, and quarter by quarter we are declining. And so the banks are in a position to provide support to the industry to take up the infrastructure, to complement and partner the government infrastructure spending program, so that we all as a country we can move forward. The other point I would like to touch is it's not related to the budget, but I would like to mention, you know, under the NPS, National Pension Scheme, and Atal Pension Yojana together, now we have reached about 9.2 crore enrollments. In fact, last year it is about 8.5, now we reach 9.2, and it is a good number, but we still have important gap left out. Out of the total, about 61 crore working adult population, we have about 33 crore was actually covered through different kinds of pension products, EPF, NPS, trust fund based, all kinds of things. And it's about between 29 to 30 crore were left out from any social security for the old age. And we need to, as a society, we need to, I think about this. I am telling you because what Gandhi has said to you, the industry should regard themselves as trustees and servants of the poor. I think FICCI still remembers this motto of Gandhi given to you. I hope, so it is your moral responsibility to encourage people who are joining the private sector, working there, to encourage them to join a pension product which provides them long-term capital when they retire, and also provides long-term capital to the private sector and public sector to invest on the long-term infrastructure projects. These are the two benefits. Most of the countries, you remember, a small country like Norway or Sweden, they look at their pension funds and look at our pension fund. It's very small, and we have just reached about 16 lakh crore, which is very small given our size of the country. So this is one area I would like the industry bodies to work. How do we improve? How do we cover largest number of working adults through a pension product, so that at the old age they will not depend on the children or anybody else, and they are secure and independent. And third point I would like to mention is, we have announced about a committee, high-level committee to look at banking for Viksit Bharat 2047. The idea is that the needs of Viksit Bharat, to reach Viksit Bharat 2047, the bank credit has to go tremendously. The current credit growth may not be sufficient, and GDP also has to grow. Bank credit growth and GDP growth are interlinked. I think all of you, many of you may be experts on this. Both are interlinked. Now, unless the bank credit grows, the GDP cannot grow, because you have to provide lending. And what kind of banking structure we need to have? What kind of this structure will have capital? And how do we use that capital deployment? are some of the issues that government, we would like the panel to consider. And therefore, we wanted an expert panel to examine all the issues involved, including the bank branches and everything, if new banks are required, license or anything related to the banking sector, we would like them to examine, so that the government will be able to take a decision on how we actually position banking sector to support the goals of Viksit Bharat. Now I think everybody will be interested what is the terms of reference, or when are we going to have report and all those things, who are the chairman, members. I think, see, it's too early to, we gave an idea, Honorable Finance Ministers gave the idea in the budget announced, and we will work out the rest of the details shortly, and we will have a wider consultation with all the stakeholders, because we need to consult both the financial ecosystem as well as the banking community, and then of course the industry bodies. We will be touching base with everyone, whoever is involved, and after taking the sessions we will finalize the TOR, and then hopefully we will have a roadmap to how to take the banking sector to fulfill the aspirations of Viksit Bharat. With these words, I once again thank FICCI and Anant and Jyoti for inviting me, and to all of you for giving me very patient hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insights on, strengthening the financial sector, and I think in particular the pension fund idea that you gave, it's worth mulling over for the private sector. With this, I'll open this for interaction, but I request first Mr. Vijay Shankar for his comments.
Thank you, Jyoti. I'd like to thank all the secretaries for taking time out on a busy Tuesday morning to be with us right after the budget, and very patiently taking us through the salient features, and also laying out what they expect from industry in a partnership mode. I think what came out of all the four secretaries' comments were how this budget, I think, is taking forward the spirit of partnership with private enterprise. I think that truly is very encouraging. I think whether it's from a direct tax perspective or from a ease of doing business perspective, how they would like to collaborate with private enterprise to in a partnership mode. I think that really improves or completely narrows the trust deficit and improves the trust between government and private sector. So firstly, thank the secretaries for laying that out very clearly. We'd also like to congratulate the government for this historic US trade deal. I think, as Mr. Nagaraju said, I think we are extremely happy. I think perhaps our enthusiasm did not come out early in the morning very well, but it's truly momentous. I think whatever was a limited clouds on the horizon have also been lifted, and I think the onus is on the private sector to reciprocate through fresh investments in capacity, which I think is the ask of the government. I think Jyoti wanted me to kick off with a question. My question is maybe directed to Ms. Anuradha, Thakur, or to the other secretaries on dais. The US trade deal was perhaps not anticipated at the time of the budget making, and also disinvestment is perhaps the one element that has not been factored in a large way in the budget. Ma'am, your thoughts on, would this give us or give the country and the government more headroom to do a little bit more on the capital expenditure side to further drive the economy, keeping the glide path of 50% central government debt to GDP ratio, ma'am?
Like you said, Vijay, that when the budget was prepared, or even in the pre-budget consultations, we were working on the situation as it existed then. And a good deal of uncertainty has been removed. So we look forward to greater buoyancy. But even despite that, the budget math is transparently revealed in the books. And we are confident, we were confident when we put it out, when we spelt it out, that we will be able to achieve the commitment that we have transparently laid out of being on the glide path on the debt to GDP, as well as on the fiscal that we have enshrined over there.
Mr. Puneet Dalmia, another question.
I would like to echo Vijay's sentiments and offer the congratulations to the government. This is the first budget from Kartavya Bhavan, and it started with a really incredible statement which I have never seen before in the history of India, that what is the duty of the government, kis kartavya bhavna se government budget bana rahi hai. So I think this was really, very, very different and very interesting. So thank you for a very constructive approach, a very transparent approach, and a very partnership oriented approach with the industry. I think also there is a shift from just domestic growth to creating global competitiveness, and there's a lot of detailing of the vision where, as you said, investments in infrastructure, investment in logistics, and specific areas have been identified. So it's again very, very interesting, how the macro vision is being translated into small details, and a lot of thought has gone beyond on it. I have two questions, ma'am. I think one is that you have lots of ideas for MSMEs, and I think they are members of FICCI and also members of our core supply chain. Many times I find that these ideas, don't fully reach them, or they don't fully understand the implications, or sometimes even we don't fully understand. Can we get a action-oriented primer where what actions can, large companies take to support implementation of these ideas and ensure that it, works through the system? And second, how do we communicate it in a very sharp way to MSMEs that how they can take advantage of it? That is one question. I think the second part is just, from a global competitiveness perspective, there is a thought of creating more R&D spend in India, and RDIF has been created, ANRF is also there. What can industry do more to take advantage of this, and how do we participate in upping our R&D spend? I think there, I'm chairing the R&D committee of FICCI. So I wanted to little bit guidance on what we can do better on that. So these are the 2 points. Thank you.
So on the MSME, I would take that not as a question but as a suggestion, and I would take that as the lead FICCI is taking on preparing the primer in consultation with us as well as MSME, because we are working together with MSME. Like I mentioned for MSMEs, we have tried to outline the direction that it is a holistic approach from all sides: equity, credit, trade finance, as well as professional support. But the devil will be in the detail, and we are also keen that we are able to track how MSMEs grow. So if you notice that line in the budget speech about incentivizing value added, specifically it may not have been mentioned, but it is about allowing and enabling MSMEs to grow further from wherever they are, in whichever sector they are. So we are happy to collaborate in putting together material that can transmit this to the MSMEs to take advantage of the various schemes. That's one. On the RDIF and ANRF, these are large fundings that the government has put across there, and the RDIF is moving very fast. The approval came late last year, and the rules have been placed, are in place and notified. I believe the RFP is out for second level fund managers. When the fund managers are in place is when industry, and I would encourage industry to already be active, watching that out, preparing your proposals, which can then be placed ahead for funding. So do be in touch with the department that's taking this forward, DST, and I look forward to, in the next year, in fact, greater draws for specific R&D related projects across the sector. So I think, like I mentioned, collaboration is really the key in the way we are trying to take forward the different aspects that we outline in budgets over the years. So do come forward, and we hope to take advantage of that synergy. Since I am speaking, I will also emphasize one thing that I think needs attention to be drawn into, because a lot of you may also be in the services sector. This budget outlines the services sector in the pillar 2, in the Kartavya 2 of the Honorable Finance Minister's budget speech, that we intend to have a symbiotic relationship between manufacturing and services, recognizing the strong role of services both in pushing growth goals, taking us towards Viksit Bharat, laying down a target actually for ourselves of reaching 10% in the services sector also, in the as part 10% of the services growth in the global context, as well as also providing a large amount of employment to our youth, which is a young and aspirational India that we all see around. So I would just place that for you all in the context of also what my colleague from Secretary DF has said, that is also an emphasis of the budget speech this year. And all of you all who are in the services sector, I would encourage you to take advantage of that as well. Thank you.
May I request Mr. Sunil?
Supplement a bit on
Yes,
that.
yes.
You know, since the RDIF which was mentioned is such a transformative thing, I just like to supplement a little bit what Secretary DEA mentioned. The full name, first of all, Research, Development and Innovation Fund. And as a country, research and development is something that both private sector and public sector, we need to really scale up. Because if you step back a bit, you know, the real growth, the real prosperity, the real wealth, in fact, comes from the discoveries. Replicating what someone else has done is only partly satisfying, but really we will grow as a country. All of you will grow as an industry when the new discoveries happen. So the focus on R&D came out very clearly through this RDIF fund, which the government has approved. The outlay also, you know, it's a huge. In fact, for me as Secretary Expenditure, you know, 1 lakh crore rupees had to be provided. So it's almost a heart-stopping kind of thing, but we have done it. You know, that is where the government is committed and where we said that we would provide funds where it is justified. So it's a huge initiative. Now, the Department of Science and Technology is a nodal department, and rightly so, they are our science and technology lead agency. And the way it is structured, you know, is a new way of doing business, what Secretary DA sort of hinted. In the Anusandhan Research Foundation, there is a special purpose fund which has been created, to which these resources will be kept, and they will then select the second level fund managers. So various AIFs will be selected through an open, transparent process. AIFs who operate in other sectors will also get into this, and once they are in place and the extremely concessional financing is provided to them, the project selection, there will be a clear firewall. In fact, this is one of the clearest provisions in the guidelines that the government agencies, government departments would not be involved in that project selection, whether this R&D project or this innovation or this startups initiative or whatever. There is a clear firewall. It's the fund manager and the team of that second level fund manager. We have the full free hand, keeping in view market elements and the commercialization of that whatever scientific idea or R&D product. And it will look at TRL levels which are 4 and above, technology readiness levels, so a bit which are mature and which are ready to be commercialized. And commercializing our inventions is also something which we lag a bit. Really, this is where we expect, using the dynamism of the private sector, of the private financing, to pick up the correct projects and take it forward, make it commercialized, make it mature, make it success. So really, I think it was a very good question that you have raised, and we would urge an industry body like FICCI to really be fully involved in this, and we believe it's something which will be transformative for the country. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. May I request Mr. Sunil Sanghai for his comment?
Thank you, Jyoti. Honorable Secretaries, my name is Sunil Sanghai. I belong to Capital Markets. There was a discussion whether the market, whether there was enough enthusiasm. All three markets, equity, bond and FX markets, are firing on all cylinders, sir. So there is enough enthusiasm in the market. But more importantly, I think this is not just the trade deal. Trade deal obviously is an immediate reaction. But if you really see, and therefore I would want to compliment all of you for a comprehensive 360-degree approach to the budget. In the last 2-3 budgets, there is a continuum. First, the corporate tax was rationalized, then the personal tax, then GST, now custom, and the expenditure has been kept. The capital expenditure has been kept with the fiscal prudence. I think all of that together is indicating what you are seeing, and I'm sure you would have seen the market this morning. I have 2 questions, one for Secretary DEA and one for DFS. Ma'am, 12.2 lakhs crore capex. We were a bit worried because we knew that there is going to be a pressure on revenue. So whether the capex will have the first casualty, but you kept it. Not only you kept, but also increased by 9%, which is really positive sign. In addition to that, the states also will chip in, and then the private sector also will chip in. So all put together, we would expect 17-18 lakhs crores to be invested in the infrastructure sector. Now, with that kind of investment, we have seen the past, the growth is given. That we will definitely grow. I don't think anybody can stop us. The point is that how do we make sure that this gets invested? The execution is always a challenge. And the execution part, ma'am, involves the ground level reality, which is states. So often we get this question asked by our clients as to, how do we execute, how do we get land, how do we get all these permissions and all of that. Is there any concentrated effort from the government to just make sure that this money gets well spent and well executed? And one add-on point, because Secretary Deepam is not here, 80,000 crore target for disinvestment. Is privatization is also part of that, or is it only the asset monetization? The reason I'm raising this privatization, because privatization also improves the efficiency. So are we focused on both, or just the asset monetization? And then I'll come back. I have a question for Secretary DFS as well.
So there were several questions in one question. So I'll take them, the subparts one by one. So on the CAPEX thrust, you're right, put together the enhanced allocation on the state support for capital investment, the grant SASCI that we have, that has got enhanced. We have enhanced our own commitment from central government side on CAPEX. And I think what you're saying is a very important point, that eventually execution and implementation of government programs is key. And we have been focusing on that as well, which is why we are seeing the growth that we are seeing, including on, say, for example, what Secretary Expenditure mentioned on the semiconductor mission. We put aside a large amount of money, it has been off-taken. On the electronic components scheme, it was approved late last year, and I think it must be a new thing that within a couple of months we have doubled the allocation, seeing the response of the investors into that scheme. So we are also, while we are putting higher allocations on things like manufacturing, infrastructure, capital expenditure, we are equally focusing on the nitty-gritties of implementation, one. Secondly, on reforms. So as has been mentioned in the budget speech as well, and you all are aware of the various measures that are being taken, high-level committees have been formed to take forward, go into the depth of details of processes and legislations and rules and regulations, which need to be reviewed and re-looked at. And we are also implementing those forward. Even with states, the central government has taken the lead in partnering into a dialogue with states. I don't have the number in front of me, but I'm aware that a number of states have taken steps forward as a result of that interaction as well as on their own. And taking forward that spirit, if you've noticed in this budget, there are many initiatives like city economic regions, medical hubs, or university townships, in which Honorable FM has announced that this will be done in 3 places, this will be done in 5 places. And to inspire states, it has been all put on challenge mode, so that states who want to come forward and speedily execute, they will be taken on board through a pre-selected fair criteria based on economic dimensions. We will start entering into quick partnerships with states and taking forward these things. So I hope that gives confidence that we are looking at a 360-degree approach from all sides, regardless of which sector it is. The second thing you mentioned about disinvestment targets, yes, I did mention yesterday, a day before, about the asset monetization pipeline. But that does not, and Secretary Deepam spoke during the press conference after the budget as well as yesterday, that 80,000 crores is a large target. And so therefore it can't be singularly achieved by any one emphasis, even if it is asset monetization. It is a mix of disinvestment as well as privatization through various modes, as well as asset monetization. All of us put together, we are hopeful that they will probably exceed the targets. So that said, we are also looking forward to, so like I started off on that question that was asked on our fiscal math. on all sides, on receipts, expenditure, and our debt to GDP as well as fiscal deficit, I am quite hopeful that given the general momentum, if January is any indication, our receipts, on the receipt side, we will probably see an uptick. And you all tell me that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I think the fiscal maths, ma'am, I totally agree with you. And you saw the bond market reaction this morning. So fiscal maths are all in line as expected by the market. Jyoti, if I can just take one quick question to Secretary DFS. Sir, this banking, I'm glad that you are thinking about it, because this was the banking framework was decided long back. There was a small revision happened in 2015, but thereafter we haven't seen significant change in that, and it is required. Couple of points, and if you can comment on them. One is, it's, as President mentioned in the opening remark, it not only requires just the governance and the ownership, but it also requires a fundamental understanding whether we want corporate to participate in the banking or not. Given that the banking would require capital for the growth, and as you rightly mentioned in your comments, sir, that loan growth is required, and for that you need capital. You would have seen in the last few months almost 70 to 80,000 crores of capital has come in through the FDI route in the various financial services sector, not just the banking but also non-banking in the other areas. So there is a capital available right now, depending on how we structure that. So is there any thinking to also look at just the comprehensive ownership when you set out the terms of condition for this this committee?
Thank you. I think you have rightly touched some very delicate space. There are actually trade-offs on this, allowing the business to own the bank and not allowing. This could also be part of the remit of the committee, which may actually look at it into that and recommend to the government. Now, the point is, I'm a little drawing this attention. The FDI into the banking, because there are, if you exclude the corporate houses, people like middle class and others, we can't afford buying a bank. It's not something, even MSMEs or any other are not possible to buy a bank. So nobody can actually invest. Now, if you give new licenses, now without the corporate houses, the only way it can grow is organically, which is very slow process. It takes 15 to 20 years to become a reasonably good sized bank. Otherwise, unless they bring in FDI. Again, so in the case of FDI, what happens if the ownership of the company goes? So these are the trade-offs. Whether you allow Indian corporate houses to own with the required guardrails, or you allow, of course, in any case, FDI is now in the private sector, we allow up to 75%. So these are the trade-offs that are there. I hope the committee will take a look at various options and what is the best going forward, so that we will be able to meet our goals. They will decide.
Thank you. I think paucity of time, so we'll just take one last question, Mr. Khurakiwala.
Thank you for a wonderful budget. We are from the pharma industry, so I think it was very positive, the Biopharma Shakti scheme that has been announced. I just wanted a clarification. Is this a grant or would this be a kind of a loan?
Details will be worked out by the department. It will, so from what I know from my discussions with the department, it will have various subparts. So some portions will definitely be in the shape of a grant, which has been the way in which we have been taking forward, particularly in new sectors. But there are many components in the scheme, which they are going to be rolling out quite soon.
Right. So I think a related comment on this is that I think innovation is extremely important for India to become Atmanirbhar and resilient by 2047. And if we take the pharma industry, to make any one product an innovative product and to launch the product, if we do it outside India, it's about $2 billion is the cost. If we do it in India, and that's what we have done as Vocart, we have now 5 innovative products that are launched. It costs about $100 million. So the cost of innovation in India is a real competitive advantage for India, and that is where India can really move forward. I think what is required is a far larger amount of incentive in terms of grant. Earlier there was an R&D tax credit of 200%. So if one could have it, while the government has recognized that this is very important from an innovation point of view, probably one can have a separate discussion as to, from a industry point of view, what will really drive innovation and spur that entire activity.
Take a note of that. We'll discuss with the department.
Thank you. We can take this later, please. We're running out of time completely. We have to start. Okay.
But at the same time, the largest employment generator and labor intensive industry, tourism, allocation of tourism has absolutely gone down, and the incentives that were given on foreign skill learning are no longer there. So, what is your comment on that?
I think tourism is a very important sector. It finds mention in budget speeches every year, and I would just assure from the government side and the budgeting side that there is no dearth of allocation of resources, provided we come up with credible schemes that justify the allocation of public monies. So we do look forward to innovative ideas that can leverage on the public monies so that the impact is large. I will leave it at that.
Thank you. May I now request our Senior Vice President, Mr. Vijay Shankar, for a vote of thanks, please.
Mr. Vualnam, Ms. Anuradha Thakur, Mr. Nagaraju, Mr. Srivastava had to leave a little early. I'd like to thank him for his presence as well. Anant Puneet, thank you so much for taking time today morning to be with us and elucidating your thoughts on the budget. I think on behalf of FICCI, we'd really like to thank the Honorable Finance Minister, Shri Nirmala Sitharaman ji, and her entire team for presenting a budget which was, I think, combines fiscal discipline with strategic clarity and a very, very strong focus on macro stability as well as on manufacturing. I think, as highlighted by the Commerce Minister, the budget aligns firmly with the long-term vision of Viksit Bharat at 2047. I think the message is unambiguous. India is preparing not only to participate in global markets, but also to shape them as a reliable producer, partner and innovator for the world. We'd like to thank the secretaries for, patiently answering all the questions, including many sensitive questions. Mr. Nagaraju, thank you for addressing all the questions, including the most important question on the high-level committee on banking and asking us to be patient. We will, I'm sure, it will be something that's of continuous interest to everybody. Also for addressing this complex issue of, with many trade-offs, as Sri Nagaraju explained, of allowing corporate houses to invest in the banking sector. Mr. Vualnam, thank you for your clarity on the fiscal prudence and the macroeconomic stability which underlined this budget. And I think directing us to read Part A, not just this year, but also earlier years' budget, I think we'll certainly, I think the Part B has become a lot more predictable, if I may say so, and I think our focus should be on reading more of the Part A, which allows us to plan a little longer. Ms. Anuradha Thakur, as always, thank you for your patiently answering all the questions on from an economic perspective, and very in a detailed manner explaining the different initiatives around manufacturing. I think this task around taking manufacturing from 16-17% of GDP to 25% is a very complex one, but certainly doable. And I think all the steps outlined by you in the budget, I think enable FICCI, as end of the day, we represent many manufacturers, small, medium and large. And I think working with the government, to ensure that this figure of 25% is reached in the not too distant future. I think all the steps that you have outlined, whether it's the chemical parks in a challenge mode, the revival of the 200 old parks, the biopharma initiative, I think all of these point in that direction, and we are grateful for your support for manufacturing. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for patiently answering all the questions today, as well as elucidating your thoughts on the budget. Thank you.
Thanks to our esteemed dignitaries. I request everybody to please stay back in the room because we'll continue with the session. Kindly remain seated. We have an interesting panel coming up next. Thank you once again, and now we will begin with we'll continue with this session. And I request my team to quickly change the dais plan, and may I request Mr. Pranav Saita, Chairman FICCI Taxation Committee, to remain on the stage. He is our moderator for the session. And let me also invite Mr. Surjit Bhujbal, Member Customs, CBIC, Ministry of Finance, on stage, please. Mr. Prasenjit Singh, Member Legislation, CBDT, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. Joining us on stage is also Mr. Uday Pimprikar, Tax Partner and National Leader, Indirect Tax Services, Ernst & Young, India. I also invite Mr. S.P. Singh, Advisor, FICCI Tax Committee. Can we quickly set the dais, please? Jyotsna, are we ready? Mr. Prasenjit Singh, Member Legislation, CBDT, Ministry of Finance. So we invite you on stage. Mr. Surjit Bhujbal, Member Customs, CBIC, Ministry of Finance. Mr. Uday Pimprikar, Tax Partner and National Leader, Indirect Tax Services, Ernst & Young, India. And our moderator for the session, Mr. Pranav Saita, Chairman, FICCI Taxation Committee. Mr. Das, you are most welcome to join the dais. We will invite you to speak in the following session, though. Before we begin with the formal proceedings of the session, I request Mr. Pranav Saita to please present the green certificate to Mr. Surjit Bhujbal, Member Customs, CBIC, Ministry of Finance. Green certificate, please. So this is FICCI's green way of welcoming you, and we'll be planting a grove of trees in Nainital, Uttarakhand, in your honor. May I also request you to kindly present the green certificate to Mr. Prasenjit Singh, Member Legislation, CBTT, Ministry of Finance. With this, I request Mr. Pranav Seta to kindly give welcome remarks and also kindly take over as the moderator of the session. So please moderate. Thank you.
Prasanjit ji, Surjit ji, Mr. Pitambar Das, Uday, and Mr. Singh, and all of the FICCI delegates present here. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of the dignitaries on the dais. It's really a pleasure to meet them and get them to share their insights on the fantastic budget that we have seen, which spells clearly a lot of continuity, stability, and the long-term vision. There are things which are now planned till 2047. I don't recall in any past budget, in part B of the speech at least, that something is provided for and guaranteed till 2047. This is probably the first occasion on which I am seeing something like that come in the budget speech of the finance minister. Certainly the entire theme of the budget seems to be talking of providing a clear field of play where there is a build-up of taxpayer and tax collector trust and relationship. That relationship is getting reinforced by this budget by a plethora of measures, both in terms of indirect tax, customs, as we shall see, as well as from a direct tax standpoint. So that indeed is a very, very welcome and healthy development that we are seeing year after year, which gets further reinforced in the current year. Without spending too much of time, let me first invite Surjit ji, since I think he has a prior commitment and he has to leave maybe. So Surjit ji, if you can address us and share your thoughts in regard to this budget and hopefully also answer a few questions of our delegates here. Over to you.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, all the colleagues on the dais, dignitaries. It is indeed a privilege to be here amongst all of you on the occasion of the interactions on post-budget, and as has been mentioned, it has been a very historic budget, and there is a lot of pluses and there is a lot of ambition, there is a lot of takeaways as we move forward in our path to, of course, the magical year figure of 2047. And while doing so, I acknowledge the green certificate by FICCI, and there is very interesting there's a very interesting phrase which is featured on the said certificate, a thicket of 7 trees, and would be very interested to know what are those species we endeavor to plant in Nainital. With all this very good and green environment around all of us here, I would like to say that the budget has been ambitious for the customs part, because I'll speak more on this. And it has occupied a very large space in the speech of the Honorable Finance Minister. And as has been mentioned by Mr. Pranay, that it has been very ambitious and progressive in nature as to what has been the roadmap laid out for all of us. Well, having said so, this would be one of the very few occasions where we have touched upon a very wide spectrum of stakeholders in custom reforms. It starts with our passengers. It starts with all categories of passengers, not only passengers who are day-to-day travelers up and down across our international airports. It does include our business travelers, it includes our entrepreneurs, it includes our laborers who go and do service across the globe. It does a lot of good for the permanent residents whether in India or outside, this has been rationalized to a very large extent by providing monetary allowances to in tune to what is happening, not only in the Indian context, but what is happening globally as to how exactly international passengers are given a treatment abroad in airports. India does have its specific instances where our concerns happens to be in the field of gold or maybe precious items, where there are a lot of apprehensions, there are risks which needs to be attended to. We have put in place some digital architecture which will make the physical interface that much less required, and which would be in a manner which would be a very smooth and seamless experience in our airports. And of course, from the enforcement part, we do rely that we will be very hands-on, and India has been very conscious of its requirements of economic security as well as the other aspects, which basically has got balanced out in this budget. The next part, of course, I would like to harp is, apart from the passengers, which occupy a very large segment in airports like Delhi and Bombay, we have the business to consumer or customer segment, which has been attended to in a very large measure. And this would definitely be a work in progress, which will keep us occupied in the coming months, because we endeavor, as we have already done in the past, having engaged very deeply with our stakeholders, we continue to endeavor to continue with this exercise, how best to roll out the best features of the e-commerce courier logistics segment. There has been a very ambitious manner of our treatment of exports in the courier part, where we have removed the 10 lakhs value cap which was there to make it open-ended. Of course, there would be requirement to have a little round of consultations, but as has been announced by the Honorable Finance Minister, it will be rolled out as has been mentioned in the speech. There were very genuine concerns on part of this particular B2C segment regarding returns and rejects, not only returns of the material which have gone out of the country, but material which has entered India and which requires to be made available outside or needs to be cleared off in a manner that the logistics and space constraint which is experienced in our international courier terminal does get attended to. We have brought in certain amendments in the Act for enabling this for little futuristic requirements. Return to origin is one of them, in which we have brought in a definition of custody in our section 84 to a little more specific in the Customs Act. The Customs Act during this course of the budget has brought in some 8 changes. Customs Act 1962, they would appear to be very small or minimal, but ramifications are very large. It has got a very progressive mindset, a lot of trust which the government has endeavored to repose on its stakeholders, insofar as to very small phrase like penalty, a word which has got featured in our Act for a long time. How exactly should we perceive that word? How exactly the business or the stakeholders or the trade perceives that? Can we have a little rephrasing of that word, a little make feel better? So that has also been attempted. The aspect of duty deferrals, which has been introduced for the AEO earlier in 2016-17, now we have announced it to be for 30 days. But significantly, what is going to play out is there is a new category which will be termed as the eligible manufacturer importers, for which the formulation is currently being considered. This should be a feature which will be progressive in the sense that if there is a need in a particular sector or across sectors which would require a duty deferment of the customs duty, that also will get played out in addition to the entities which enjoy them presently, that is a T2, T3 of the accredited clients of the AEO program. Now, beyond this, for the first time perhaps, and I'm extremely personally very happy that the Honorable Finance Minister mentioned it, our endeavor to make India as one of the very robust and frontline players in international trade is, of course, when we have our footprints on a digital architecture. And being a very large country with the customs attending to works including on the land borders, on the international airports, on the ICDs, on the gateway ports and the airports per se, the challenges are manifold. But if everything is subsumed in a manner which is on a digital platform, it does make life very easy for everybody, not only for the department per se, but for the IEC holders, for the passengers, for including the consumers under the B2C in the e-commerce ecosystem. And I would not hesitate to say that there was a very ambitious announcement on this part regarding having in place a single window. Now, single window is a new avatar of the previous version of 2015, in which we basically had the live cargo clearance agencies in place, integrated as such in the customs ecosystem, a digital ecosystem of clearances of export and import cargo. But now we endeavor to even include all agencies who are involved in any measure, small or big, including your import licenses, export licenses, your LPCOs. So much things should become visible for every one of us that it becomes a little predictable exercise, a little exercise in certainty, and which definitely would enable better business planning, better assurance on part of the suppliers also, the importers, exporters. All this in the realm of ensuring that India attains those very high objectives of Make in India. India attains these high objectives of ensuring our exporters do benefit, to make it more time bound, to make it more visible, to know where the glitches are. Now, whether the benefits would accrue or not, I think we are very sure it will definitely accrue once the systems are in place. It is a 2-year program announcement by the Honorable Finance Minister to put in place a robust customs integrated system, and that, I suppose, could happen a few months before that also, because work in that is happening in very right earnest. The single window version 2 is being handled at a very high level, and the government is interested to put on board more than 60 agencies, attending to requirements of more than 600 plus notifications, which are handled by the customs authorities on a day-to-day basis across the 280 plus international cargo clearance points. We have announced, the government has announced its intention to have certain automated initiatives which will happen without any requirement for any further data entry, which will enable that data which is already available is getting populated in some manner. There's a lot of messaging which keeps happening between the stakeholders in a customs cargo clearance ecosystem, whether it's a port or airport or the courier terminals, etc. So we want to see that this messaging happens in a seamless manner, and the content of those messages are utilized in various manner to automate, like automating the registration process, or the goods registration, as they say, registration of the import cargo, registration of the export cargo, and then auto out of charges, auto let export orders. Though the customs portion in involving time being taken in the export side is less, because as is evident from the time release study, but we know that if improvements could happen there, it could happen downstream also in the subsequent logistics chain. So we are ensuring that somewhere in place with the initiatives of the logistics oversight put in place by the Government of India and various ministries working in tandem, and including utilizing the single window interface space, that everything will happen in the coming years where things will happen as desired. Apart from this, we are also conscious of the fact that there is a very large ecosystem which operates. In fact, around 17 to 20% of the cargo goes into the warehousing mode of business. And of course, within the warehousing, there is a mover also, and beyond mover, there is an ecosystem of the customs bonded warehouses. We have attempted that in taking out the wrinkles. There was an ecosystem of a permission required to be given by the officers. Now here is the question of trust being reposed by the government on the stakeholders. It will be a question of intimation henceforth, and we want to put in place a digital structure, which will take care of a requirement of an oversight, but oversight in future will happen to be only digital. And then again, attending to the requirements of risks, a risk-based assessment approach will be adopted once we see how these warehouses are going to operate, what benefits will be there for each sector, so that at the same time we have the requirements of certain manufacturing sectors which require support in this area and who do leverage on the warehousing scheme. Of course, from the CBIC side, yesterday we heard there has been certain initiatives there also. So warehousing has been a little reform area we have taken upon ourselves. Lastly, but not the least, apart from touching upon a plethora of stakeholders, is the area where the government has announced its intent about ensuring that all the containers are completely scanned at the major ports. Because if you take the major ports handling sea cargo or the air cargo itself, there is a requirement where things has to be more seamless. There are some agencies, including, like you say, at the airport, the Bureau of Civil Aviation, or at the port also, there could be some authorities. These are requirements which has been announced, and this is certainly a very way forward for the years to come. Not very immediate basis, but definitely in the medium term, where we will be having a non-intrusive approach in our examination of cargo. We have in the interim already announced that during the examination process of the cargo consignments, we would like to bring a transparent manner of oversight. And we do hope that all these measures which has been announced, the nitty-gritties of course will be taken up in your subsequent session as given to understand. But very broadly, it is a budget which has reposed a lot of faith on the citizens. And there's a lot of responsibility and accountability on the government departments to deliver on these promises. And I can assure you on part of the CBIC that we will be putting our best foot forward. We will continue with our engagement of consultation, cooperation and coordination with our stakeholders. We will try to deepen our understanding about the problems which we continue to face and take them on board as the days come by. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Surjit ji. Should we take some questions on indirect tax first, and then maybe Uday, you want to?
Yeah, thanks a ton, Surjit ji. I think, I mean, you rightly pointed out a couple of things that even in the earlier kind of interactions that people haven't really noticed. The courier relaxation, okay, removing that particular threshold, I think is a massively, big move. It actually, from an intent perspective, goes from the fact that, the sheer trust kind of mechanism starts there. Again, the section 67(1), by actually legislating that you don't really require any prior permission from the legislation and kind of going into this entire self-assessment and again, these are moves that we wouldn't have expected to kind of have happened in this. We've been seeing this. So it's a massive, let's say, change in approach and the digitalization, I think, which you quite rightly articulated. One question I have had, okay, and I mean, I'm sure there will be other questions that would come from this. I think the industry has been asking for some kind of a dispute settlement kind of scheme, and the reason is actually just to provide a little bit more certainty for people to kind of allow. Is there something in the works? Should we be working with you all to kind of get into some mediation, conciliation framework, whereby some of the disputes in the past can be settled and people can move on?
So, in this particular area of focus, actually, this has been, I must admit, this was taken up by FICCI and the other bodies also, that whether there could be some manner of dispute resolution or some sort of amnesty scheme as was being phrased earlier. I must admit that the custom ecosystem, it operates with a lot of footprints, about 60 odd agencies in place. There is so much of commitment on part of, I'm not denying that this could never be a reality, but of course it hasn't happened in this budget because the speech is before all of us. But I can just tell you the intricacies involved, and that was also appreciated by certain trade bodies who broached this subject, and this has been last year also, this was taken up, is the fact that, customs does endeavor in the areas of prohibitions, restrictions. Apart from its own customs act, there is a lot of statutes and laws which we enforce. So once we take any measure, it has got its implications across. So of course there was this issue, can we limit it in the areas of classification, valuation? Now these are very data driven empirical findings, and we had requested the trade to come up with certain more firm proposals, and I think as the days to come, as I said, the government of India is extremely open. But having said that, in fact, in the matter of dispute resolution, sometime in 2023, followed up in 24, we have provided value benchmarks on values in which, the government would not prefer filing any appeal. Of course, those appeals would not take away any laws or the principles which needs to be adhered to, but basically the quantum of duty involved appeals would not be filed. I think we have seen a lot of positives there. The number of appeals which are getting filed has come down. And in the matter of dispute resolution, I must admit there was this request on part of the trade that whether in customs appeals, whether can you bunch appeals together on various import declarations, bills of entry as they say. Now that part I think will continue to engage us. But customs reforms has, though in this budget has occupied a very large space, I must admit, including almost 1.5 pages of the madam's document which has been published in the public domain. But it has been a continuous process. As I said, we'll continue to work with all of you to fine tune what could be the further areas to announce and revamp and reform. Thank you.
So I'm just going to add a couple of more kind of questions before kind of open this. I think the other big change that you're bringing in is this entire deferral of payment of duty and expansion of that framework to allow eligible importers to also kind of go ahead and do it. One request, and I know that you all are going to kind of create the guidelines for the same. One request is to make that particular category as expansive as possible. Okay, and I mean it happens for indirect taxes even otherwise, wherein self-assessment payments are made, and if let's say the payments are kind of are not made, or there is a default in 1 month, then subsequent kind of exclusions are brought about. But that sheer step or allowing people to make the payments periodically, I mean, it significantly enhances the efficiency. So that was one, and I would definitely like your comments on that. And perhaps the last one is on an overall basis, this entire digitalization, and if you all have very ambitious targets to kind of execute within this financial year and also the next financial year, if you would want to just quickly let people know as to what you're planning there, because again this is so inspirational, and I think people should realize what's being tried to be achieved in this overall really short time that you all are trying to do.
Well, thank you very much. We have taken note of all these suggestions. First of all, on the duty deferral, it needs to be as expansive, as beneficial as possible. We will definitely, if required, have a quick round of consultations with FICCI and the other bodies. This would be a game changer, because for entities, as I mentioned, beyond the AO realm, beyond the realm of AO ecosystem. Now, the digitalization initiatives, in fact, today, fortunately, businesses have got very advanced systems. So I'm just thinking aloud, it's not part of the budget or anything, that whether in future can we leverage the systems advancements which is existing and which is used by the businesses in some manner, as to have an interplay between the government system and the system which is there housed. Of course, on the digital initiatives, as has been mentioned, we will endeavor to quickly have certain round of discussions, which maybe FICCI could be good enough to host it here in Delhi, or maybe across the city. We will take measures to do that. Though in the matter of digitalization, we in phases, we bring out advisories, etc., but we're trying to house them together in a manner which is more appreciable. Thank you.
This question
Yes,
there.
I think the gentleman there, I'll come back. Yes.
Years, and we are looking forward for implementation. Industry is also looking forward for this rationalization of custom duties in sectors where the India has large capacities and which are unutilized, and these capacities not only for the domestic export, domestic demand, also for exports. These capacities are unutilized because of the cheap imports and illegal imports. Whether there is some rationalization on this part, and chemical is one of such sectors.
So basically, the time of the budget, as we know, we take this measure to interact not only with the industry stakeholders but also with the line ministries who happen to be, like in the case of chemicals, the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. Now, you heard in the budget speech that India aims to occupy a high position in the area of sports. Now, there would definitely be a requirement for attending to some of the requirements of customs, duties and taxes. And that would definitely be a way forward. Ministry of Civil Aviation is looking at putting in place, hubs for not only for maintenance, repairs, etc., but also for transit of passengers, something like what we have internationally. So various industry segments do come into our picture of rolling out what could be a strong manufacturing segment. And while doing it, new initiative which is announced, like the biopharma initiative by the Honorable Finance Minister, if at all it requires a treatment on part of the indirect taxes and customs, will definitely get attended to. Now, these are also very ambitious programs by the Government of India. So a whole of government approach is in line for almost many years now, and that gives a scope for a role play by each of the line ministries, and we will definitely play a role in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Namaskar. I welcome today's meeting. As has been mentioned by Uday sir, regarding the mediation and dispute resolution at the basic level of where the dispute starts, we find the departments and the officers are often prejudiced with the laws, and the continuous litigations fox the energy of the taxpayer towards the discussions, litigations there and thereon, whereby the revenue generation and the other prime objectives are put by aside. This is happening in the direct taxes and the indirect taxes as well. They don't try to, the laws are so complicated that ease of doing business, a citizen or an industry is often involved in such methodologies. In spite, Apex Court even today is promoting the dispute settlement mediation. My second humble question was, whereas one nation, one election is going on, why the government and the respective departments don't go to one nation and one tax? There are multi-layered tax where the industry and the other people are involved, just like GST, TCS, TDS, income tax, and thereby interest, penalties and prosecutions, so on. There are volumetric such issues being tackled by day to day by the industry and the individual citizen. Why we don't fastly step towards one nation, one tax? Thank you. Rakesh Gupta, Padma Polychem Private Limited.
So basically, very broadly, I'd like to answer about my colleague from the Central Board of Direct Taxes and not be able to say whether in future we'll have one tax. Of course, we endeavored that in the GST with subsume around 18 taxes. I think India has started that, and that has been appreciated globally. And the further, what is the global good appreciation which has come forth is how exactly has India leveraged on its indirect tax system domestically with the tariffs and custom taxes or the custom duties internationally. Now, this is something which I'm telling India has taken a big step forward. Definitely the days will come in the era of artificial intelligence, but 2047, we don't know where exactly we will stand physically, whether from our comforts of our home we'll be able to see everything which is happening. You reflected upon the issue of mindset problem. The mindset problem is definitely in the big country of India is a reformative approach. And internally, the department do take measures to have a little reorientation of that mindset. We have this exercise internally going on, and we can only say that we will definitely be expecting more positive outcome of all this. Thank you.
Sir, even GST is very complicated in its implementation way. There is no place for the taxpayer, there is no space for the taxpayer MSME in consideration. They are too prejudiced. The second point is 47 is 2-4. The earliest we do one nation, one tax. The government is employing lot of machinery on the collection of revenue. That expenditure directly is indirectly on the taxpayer and on the nation. What is happening? We have, if we want to progress towards the Viksit Bharat, after all it is citizens' right under constitution to exist with a nominal tax. Not TCS, TDS, interest, penalty, prosecution.
Absolutely.
What is happening? Who is going to see that?
Rakesh,
Who is going to address that? Thank you.
I think sir has understood your
Thank
point.
you.
Any other questions? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'll just add on to what has already been mentioned. I think I would like to bring to your attention the issues which we face on ground. On that, if I have done my export, shipping bill doesn't come to on the portal to my bank, or it doesn't go. IGST is not reflected. You know, the system of correction, I think that's something is very, very tough and difficult. You cannot go back and see how this has to be done. So resulting into that your credits are pending or your settlement is pending. Similarly, sir, at the ground level, at your commissioner level, duties paid under protest, the dates are not fixed. The cases are not fixed. It's pending for years. Can we fix up some timeline that within which they have to resolve, whether this way or that way? But this has to be fixed, sir. These are pending for a long time. Similarly, the issues faced on the courier import, which you mentioned, I think in case there is a clerical mistake somewhere, it's so tough to get it corrected, sir. You lose we lose our credit. So I think these are few things, but important because they run into lakhs.
So on your last part, I'd like to touch upon, because the filing of the declaration is filed by the courier operators, and there I understand there in some areas there has been some problems regarding the KYCs and declaration of what goods, etc. That of course is an ongoing process, we must admit. But in the current revamp of the ecosystem, we do, as I mentioned very briefly, it could happen that more trust is reposed on the courier operators and the KYC process is streamlined also. Now, regarding your mentioning of certain grievances which is being experienced on part of the export segment, which is happening, rectification of things which you require to be done post-export. Now, we have brought in certain measures, if you recollect last budget also. There is a voluntary approach in course correction of your declarations already filed, both on the import side and export side. And that is an intimation which you give. And if suppose it happens to be in the requirement of certain export benefits or refunds, there is also a stipulation which has been laid down procedurally. Now, we do understand that on the export side, there is a very large element where the stakeholders intend to have course corrections to be made. I must admit, before the August gathering, that the Government of India has been taking very serious consideration of all the matters which has been placed by the concerned export promotion councils, including FICCI, ASSOCHAM, CII and other trade bodies. The last many months, there has been very vigorous attempt to understand these problems in detail. And I must admit, almost quite a large segment which was communicated internally. But again, it's a question of interministerial approach. It's a whole of government approach. It could be the DGFT, it could be the Ministry of Commerce, it could be on one hand the DPIIT or the Department of Revenue, or so many across plethora of agencies, textiles, etc. Now, we are attempting to harmonize all the glitches which is being experienced, and the resolution does happen. We have an ongoing process in the CBIC, and these basically the facts what you just mentioned. Export remittances not happening, EDPMS not getting alerted, IDPMS not happening. These are already taken on board, and I do suppose these will be getting resolved as fast as possible. As I mentioned, it is not only in the doorstep of CBIC, but as a whole of government approach. It's a question of RBI, it's a question of host of line ministries which are involved. Thank you.
Sir, one is the procedural aspect. Second is that you lose your credit. You are not able to use it. IGST, it is not reflecting on IGST portal because of some issue there.
So the past IGST credit which you are endeavoring on payments which has been done subsequently on provisional assessment finalization, on important assessment finalization provisionally, these are something which I mentioned, and the digital architecture, once it is robust, the messaging exchanges happens in a manner which is able to capture the details and the data fields, which will be able to automate the rollout of the export benefits and including your IGST refund. Thank you.
Sir, Pinaki Das from Association of Synthetic Fiber Industry.
You're already running behind schedule.
Yeah, I just reiterate the fact from my previous colleague. Overcapacities and subsidies by specifically from China has resulted low capacity utilization, underutilization, and across entire man-made fiber, synthetic fiber segment, which has been given with the data, facts and figures presented before Ministry of Finance in the budget. Even the last budget's announcement, there was specific duty on synthetic fabric, which was again reiterated in some other category of HS codes. But somehow those points have not been addressed, although there is a good, that is a long-term vision have been drawn in terms of textiles, a roadmap, and then it's a long-term, we have to work on it, towards it to get the things done. But in the immediate measures, these are the challenges industries are facing. And also there are substandard material dumpings happening continuously, which is the known given fact, and it is represented from time and again. So what is the takeaway, or means whether we will further submit our representation, or how it will tackle these issues, sir?
The aspects of the industry sectoral focus which you have for textiles currently would do well if you are able to reiterate them in a manner which we will be able to take it up with the Ministry of Textiles, because I understand from your issue that it is not only limited to CBIC, it does happen in the realm of the commerce and textiles. We will be in a right earnest taking it up. Some areas, as you mentioned in the past, have been attended to, but we'll look at some of the more positive developments elsewhere where duties, tariffs have been brought down on Indian exports. We will see something better things to happen, but textile happens to be a large employment sector. Oh, definitely we'll look into this. Regarding DGTR, anti-dumping and all, we understand the industry stakeholders having expressed the dumping issues from China, and we are conscious of that fact. Would like to request if you can reiterate them in more clear terms to us.
Surely, sir, we'll do that. Just a fact means even after getting the disclosure from DGTR, it has not been finally given the notification to customs to implement it. The implementation has always become a challenge, means in many sectors and products.
This, if I understand correctly, your notification by the Department of Revenue, which is a time period gap of 90 days, which is available. In some areas, if you can have which exactly TR notification is pending, we will take it up in the tax research unit.
Yeah, it is there, yeah.
Thank you so much, Surjit ji, for such a patient answering of all the questions and concerns of our members, and your insights in respect of the budget. Really appreciate it. Let's move on to direct tax. Prasanjit ji, again, from a direct tax standpoint, we have seen clearly a big push towards trying to trust taxpayers. Even the receptivity is evident, whether it is in terms of reducing the amount that has to be paid during a stay from 20% to 10%, which considerably helps businesses with their liquidity and so on. Also in terms of, the buyback tax provisions, the way in which simplicity has been brought about in various fields like safe harbor rules, APA being done in a time-bound manner and so on. Decriminalization which has come in a big way. So really appreciate the Revenue Secretary also this morning mentioned quite a lot about the whole emphasis of the government being to try and build that trust, because the whole feeling is most taxpayers want to be honest and want. So that whole atmosphere is changing, which is a very, very healthy sign. Look forward to hearing your insights, and of course then we have various questions for you too. Over to you.
Thank you, Pranav-ji, and namaskar. First of all, at the outset, I would like to thank FICCI for inviting Team CBDT for a very, very important discussion, and at a very historic FICCI auditorium. If I see that it was where here the Mahatma Gandhi had addressed on 1931, yes. So that I can see it. So it's a very, in fact, it becomes more contextual because it's a historic budget and being the first from the Kartavya Bhavan that the Honorable FM had also pointed out. So it is very historic at a very historic venue. So just to I will give a broad outlook of the approaches and the principles which were followed in the direct tax proposals. So what was the basic approach has been as per the Honorable PM's vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Vikas towards the Viksit Bharat. That has been the motto of these direct tax proposals in the budget. And if I divide it broadly into four categories, it will be the trust-based governance, enhanced taxpayer services, litigation management, and bringing certainty and clarity in issues. This is leading to ease of business and ease of living. So this is the broad theme which has been the proposals have been built on. So just to go into, before I go into the more details about the various aspects, I would also just like to share with this August gathering, but with the government's approach towards simplification of the direct taxes, in which the Income Tax Act 2025 was introduced, which will be enabled from 1/4/2026. The proposed rules and drafts are also will be rolled out soon. And for the first time, the government has decided that the draft rules and the forms will be shared with the stakeholders on the public forum, which before they are notified. And just to share with the August gathering that these rules and forms, which will be actually the enabler for the implementation of the new act, the forms are ultimately the stakeholders are the users of the forms. So a lot of thought process has gone into making of these forms, and which include the simplification, removal of the redundancies, making it smart, simplified, making it unified, enhancing the user experience, and also making it smart forms. Making smart forms means the forms are talking to each other, means single source of data. If the data is there somewhere in with the tax department or any other agencies also, which the department is in touch, all those data will be fetched, and once so what will the result will be? The result will be that the data will be auto-filled, and so the user experience and the compliance level will be very, very less for the taxpayers. So which will enhance the experience also, and also reduce the compliance burden also. So I would request that once these forms and rules are placed on the public domain shortly, the members should be going through them, and of course we also putting the guidance note, the draft guidance note in the FAQs also on the for the public consultation also. And so it can be, when it comes out, it should enhance not only the enhanced stakeholders enhanced user experience also, but it should be the best for all the stakeholders. So this is all about the enhancing the experience, and how the trust-based. A lot of talk has been taught about how the grievances on the various fronts have been there, litigation has been there. So the government has been focusing on the trust-based governance, and which can be seen from where we see that from the various measures which has taken into account, starting with the decriminalization and rationalization of the penalties. So if I go to the various provisions which were related to prosecutions, most of the prosecutions were having 7 years of rigorous imprisonment with minimum terms of imprisonment also. So all these have been done away with. Some of the prosecutions have been decriminalized. All the other provisions have been reduced to simple imprisonment, and also no minimum imprisonment has also been, leaving it to a fine also. And threshold and a very graded approach has been taken, where depending on the nature of the offense, it will also that it can be a fine also, it can be a minimum. No minimum imprisonment type of things have been recommended. So it is a very, very big change, which shows that how the government is focused on easing the businesses and the life of the citizens, the taxpayers, for any inadvertent errors where they have made some mistakes and which they want to correct it. And all in addition to this, all the prosecution proceedings are compoundable. So that adds to that it can be compoundable. And just to share with the audience that a lot of compounding has been done in the last 2 to 3 years when this new provisions had taken into place, which is very robust and very, very systematic approach. Which then again, one of the major areas of concerns from the stakeholders was regarding the Black Money Act, and for which again this disclosure scheme has been brought in for the small taxpayers. So what we are targeting, the government has been conscious of the fact that very of the honest taxpayers who have missed out when this Black Money Act was introduced 9 years back, had missed out the opportunity of disclosing it. So for stakeholders such as students who had opened the bank accounts, or tech professionals who got ESOPs, or NRIs who were returned back to the country, or professionals who were on deputation, and these type of stakeholders who were generally missed out, had foreign assets or had foreign income, or in some cases they had foreign income and on which taxes was also paid, but they had missed out on declaring the foreign assets. So a window has been brought in called FAST. That is, the scheme has been called, that scheme will be notified. So this will give a big relief. So of course, taking care of the prosecution penalties will be done away with. This is also one of the major steps taken by the government. And making the ease of living and ease of compliance, if we see that the TDS certificate for the small taxpayers, for the small, which will be notified soon, it has been made automated, which you can basically systems will be issuing it, no interface, no human interface, it will be automatically issued. Then taking into consideration how the human aspect also, if you see the motor vehicles accident claims. So it was noticed that in the cases of where compensation was, interest on the compensation was paid by the motor vehicles tribunal, it was being taxed and the TDS was being deducted. The government has done away with even the taxation part and even a TDS part. So taking into consideration how compassionately it is looking towards the taxpayers and the citizens of the country. Then again, for the making it simpler for the NRIs who want to sell their properties, it was a big hassle for them because the buyer has to obtain the TAN, and which was of course again a compliance burden for the TAN. It has been done away, and the PAN will be sufficient for the buyer to do with the transactions also. And again, another important part has been that the provisions related to updated returns and revised returns. The revised returns period and the belated returns period has also been extended, and the updated returns has also, the scope has also been enhanced. Even those even in the cases where reassessment proceedings, where the department has specific information and the cases have been reopened, even those cases where the notices have been issued, the taxpayer has the choice and option of going for the updated return. So the overall approach has been that the taxpayers, we trust the taxpayers, and we know that once they are nudged, they are told that there are some discrepancies which you have missed out or you have been wrongly claimed ignorantly, please come out and please pay the taxes, some additional taxes, and finish with and get away with the proceedings, so making it life simpler. And also even for the TCS rate for the domestic travels companies has been reduced from 20, where there was a big demand from the tourism industry. One of the members had asked about the tourism, so this has been taken care of by as far as tax proposal is concerned. Even taking into claim for the reduction in the TDS and TCS for the remittances made for the medical purposes for the students. All these have been taken into care of, and also the return dates have been more rationalized, because it was found that it was a big burden from the 31st July for the taxpayers and for the auditors. So that has also been taken care of, though it has been extended and it has been integrated into this. Then another part was considered that 15GH, 15H forms were being filed by the investors. The huge numbers were filed by the investors, where a lot of senior citizens were involved, and housewives, small taxpayers, which were finding it difficult so now they don't have to run to different places. If they are going to get dividends or interest from the 5 or 6 companies or payers, they don't have to go individually. They have to just go to a single depositor, and there are 2 depositors. They will take care of so they making it life simpler. And then of course the safe harbor rules, as my friend Pranoji mentioned about how the safe harbor rules have been expanded. It from 300 to 2,000 crores. It's a huge jump, and which will of course not only attract investments, and also it will also give flip to innovations and research also, and to the Indian industries, and a big platform has been provided for the ecosystem for the economic benefits also. And another part was considered in the search and seizure assessments also, where it was gathered from the stakeholders, where in such cases where sometimes in one transaction is found for 1 year only, and the search proceedings for the 5-6 years will be opened in those cases. So it was a big burden for the taxpayers who had cases, especially in the cases of realtors or something where we found that some on money had been paid, and so that also had been simplified. It will be limited to 1 year also. So the overall approach, if you see that a very detailed nuances have been gone into taking into consideration whatever the various stakeholders have been feeling the increase in the compliance burden, or felt that there is a need to simplify things. That has been done, and technology has been driving force. And I would like to share with the Nudge campaign, which has been going for the last 2 years regarding the updated returns. As a result, in the last 2 years, 1,22 lakh taxpayers have updated their tax returns, which shows when the honest taxpayers are made aware of the mistakes, that you have missed out on certain discrepancy on certain claims, or you have made wrong claims, or you have made some mistakes and when they are nudged, they are told, they come out cleanly and they pay the additional tax and they do it. So this has been the approach, and this shows even in not only in terms of the domestic transaction, but also in the cases of foreign assets also. A huge number of taxpayers have come across, and they have disclosed their foreign assets also and foreign income also. So trust-based governance has been one of the focus of this direct tax proposals also, and as in line with the government policy of trust-based governance. And one of the major, I would like to also share that one of the major factors which will bring a lot of change in bringing around the litigation as far as direct taxes are concerned is about the integrated assessment and penalty order. So the composite scheme has been launched, where both the penalty and the assessment will be done together. Earlier, it was bringing a lot of uncertainty that when the assessment order was passed, then the taxpayer was in limbo whether the penalty will be passed, or will be levied or not levied, and then it will be and then now it will be at one go they will be knowing that what it will be, whether the penalty is there. And even to make it more easier, so the penalty part has been kept in abeyance. It will not be, any interest will not be calculated, and the tax and for filing the appeal, only Atulji Pranoji also mentioned that only 10% has to be deposited for filing the appeal. That will also give more liquidity to the taxpayers, and from the earlier 20%. So these are the I think broad reforms. So with this, I think this takes care of the broad approach which government has taken, and what the Honorable PM had mentioned about the Reform Express. I would say that the direct taxes proposals give more boost and more energy to the Reform Express, and other forms of about about data center and the GVC and the toll manufacturing. All these factors, you see, it's a whole plethora of proposals have been made, bringing to which boost not only the economy but also the taxpayers' confidence and also the citizens also. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prasanjit ji. You did mention about decriminalization, which is admittedly one of the highlights of this budget, no doubt about it. One of the things, however, which I do feel probably can be discussed is Niti Aayog had suggested full decriminalization for many things and partial for many things. Most of it has been accepted, but a couple of things I find, like TDS, TCS or return filing, they had said fully decriminalized, but in the budget we see only partly it's been accepted and partly not. So I was wondering what was the thought process, especially given the whole spirit of trying to build trust and trying to build a ecosystem of honest taxpayers. On the penalty and assessment combined order, I quite see the mind from which it is coming. But at the same time, there is some apprehension amongst industry and taxpayers that for penalty, actually, there's a much higher standard of proof required in order to levy a penalty than for making an addition during an assessment, as various courts have held. Also, when it comes to penalties, at least the taxpayer, if he knows in advance during the assessment phase and part of the assessment order what the reasons were for making certain additions, he can then come ahead with additional proof, additional evidence to show that it wasn't really warranted and at least penalty isn't warranted. So is this combining really going to be the best way forward, or is there a better way of going about it? Similarly, one of the asks of industry as well as Niti Aayog, I think, was this reverse burden of proof, that the taxpayer is presumed guilty unless he proves himself innocent, which is quite the opposite of general criminal law, where a citizen is assumed to be non-guilty till he is proven to be guilty, whereas that is turned on its head in the current Income Tax Act, and the ask was that reverse burden of proof on the taxpayer should be done away with. So some of these things we thought would have been great if they would have come about in the budget as part of the decriminalization. Would be really helpful to have your thoughts on these subjects.
Yeah. So I would just on the first of all on the decriminalization part, I would like to mention that most of the recommendations of the Niti Aayog had been taken into consideration, but we also have to need to understand that when in the cases of where I will tell you about scenarios where a taxpayer deducts a tax TDS on behalf of several of his employees and doesn't pay it, and he vanishes. So who is suffering? Ultimately, it is suffering. The taxpayers are suffering because the employees are suffering. So it cannot be a situation where we can decriminalize the entire things and make it that it's free for all, or it is a scenario where you deduct taxes. Basically the taxes have been deducted. It's not yours. It has been deducted on the behalf of some persons, and it is supposed to be deposited with the government. It's the government money which has been taken on the behalf of someone. So that aspect has to be taken into consideration, because if you totally decriminalize it, that is why if you see, it has been a graded approach now. We have done that if the evasions related to 10 lakhs or less, it is a fine only. If it is 10 to 5 lakhs, so it is a graded approach. So that is why to say that we do decriminalize everything and everything will be ordered. And if you also see, all the prosecutions are 2 years only. Only in the cases of repeated offenders, it is 3 years.
Correct.
So some balance has to be kept into a system that and that is why we have done away with the minimum. We have left it to the courts. If the court feels that the person his offense is not so serious, the court will decide whether it will be 1 day or 2 days or 3 days or 1 month, whatever, or it is only fine. So we have left it to the courts only, because the court will let the court decide. And also keeping in mind that the honest taxpayer, sometimes they make some comment, the compounding scheme still exists. So if you see in an overall package, things are in place, and the department and the government feels that no one is going to suffer who has made a genuine mistake. So this is why that a balance has to be taken. Now coming to the second about the penalty part, is that there is a very good question. So now just to ensure that it is not that the assessment and the penalty will go to show cause. Once the assessment has been drafted, a mechanism will be shared soon, but just in the principle I am telling you, a show cause will be given for the penalty, and for which the taxpayer will have the right to respond. And as you rightly mentioned, it's a more burden of he or they will be having a right to respond to that. And so it cannot be that arbitrary that the tax officer decides that once I have given him a show cause, and I will decide it. So the second part will be a show cause regarding the penalty.
Very good. And regarding the burden of proof, sir, anything? Because that's a major pain point sometimes. That
see, the burden of proof, the concept of the burden of proof is ultimately, it is, if you see, it is not something of a strict burden of proof. So scenarios has to be, because lot of information is in your domain, in your knowledge. So if I leave that everything, a department has to prove it, for example, then it becomes impossible, because what have we, There are checks and balances, there are systems in place, the provisions are already there, you are getting the, ultimately if you draw a line, what is there? Natural justice. The principles of natural justice takes care of that whether you are getting the opportunity to prove your point, whether you are getting to opportunity to show that your transactions, if your case secretarial transactions were genuine in a manner in which it has laid down the law, it is proved. So that is the purpose.
Right. So one of the points you also mentioned was, and it's a fantastic move, the tool-based 15G, 15H, filing to the depository and the depository shares with all the companies. It's a fantastic thing. In fact, that was one of the representations. But should it not be extended similarly to other aspects? Like we thought that it could just be uploaded on the CBDT or government website, where even bank FDs and other things, so throughout it can be used. Wherever under that pen there is a form 15G, 15H, etc. file, all the payers, whether it is bank FDs or companies paying dividend and so on, rather than restricting it to only depositories and companies.
So it's very valid. It is already under consideration and it is being worked upon. So soon, once the decision is made, it will be.
Excellent. Thank you so much, sir. Very heartening. Even your penalty show cause notice point, so it's really helping. So one of the points which has gone completely unmentioned is, while we are on the one hand talking of real income, actually what the taxpayer has earned should be taxed. One of the points which I thought was a little not quite easy to understand is, for a person earning dividend income, if he has incurred expenses specifically, exclusively for earning that income, only 20% was being allowed based on the budget provisions a few years back. And in this year's budget provisions, it is now provided that even that 20% will not be allowed. If there is an expense incurred exclusively for the purpose of earning the income, should it not be allowed naturally, because only after deducting that, real actual income of the taxpayer can be known?
Patamba.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, but the whole policy has to be seen from a background also, because dividend is to be taxed on an applicable rate. So that applicable rate for individual, you could have seen that in Finance Act 2025, now 12 lakhs, we are not taxing anything. So it is something to do with the earlier policy. So therefore, first thing is that the government feels that the borrowed capital should not go into a riskier proposition of investing. So that is one part. Second part, when the dividend is actually earned, it is taxable on an applicable rate. Already the applicable rate, if you see, there is a lot of, relaxation over the years. Therefore, it doesn't make much sense to even allow this, which is contrary to a broader policy outlook.
So, I'll just make one point and then throw open. There are a lot of promoters, entrepreneurs, startup, businessmen who borrow monies for investing, and it just enables growth, expansion and so on. Many of those are promoter holding companies, holding shares of their operating or listed companies and so on. So it's not always, if we make it possible for entrepreneurs to even borrow and infuse capital and grow their business, it's just helpful when we are competing in a global environment. So my humble submission, you may want to consider that. Why don't I open up any questions from the team? Yes, it's up.
I said, very interesting actually. We had the Revenue Secretary and now Prasenjit saying about the entire trust-based governance. And I think that is clearly, even when the Revenue Secretary started, he started with his thought process. And that is a very, very welcoming mood. But let me pick up what Pranav just added, is that really in global systems, if you look at it, I think whenever there is a breach, and I think I can see what you suggested, that you don't deposit TDS and you run away, there is certain criminal issues involved. But I would request you to think about a little bit more global economic regulations, where penalties or in such situation, monetary compensation which you demand is much more, and that is in lieu of imprisonment. That what it does is really, it actually builds a lot of check and balance, because if you delay it, the economic impact is much more than what you save. And something like that can also, because a lot of time in large corporates and people promoter level, the things could be of misses, and if the impact is huge, there is no economic benefit of not complying. And in that situation, because you said it's a reform express, so the next year reform, you can think about that part to be looked at it, because I think the criminal part of economic offenses makes a lot of global investors very nervous. And let me just give you some numbers so that it will help you to appreciate why we are, because Indian promoters, Indian business houses, FICCIs, their members, they understand that. But globally, people don't understand. And if you look at our results, net FDI in last 10 years annually has been just $10 billion net, if you actually deduct. So that is a little bit of a problem, and today we are competing globally because a lot of AI companies globally are growing phenomenally, and we are all competing with the same amount of money, and we all understand we need money to grow, bringing growth. So I would request you to think about that.
Thank you, Mohit. Thank you. In fact, Mohit and we have been the hostel mates. So nice, good to see him. So just to respond to, of course, we would like to have some inputs from the FICCI that about some provisions. But just to give a background of, and that his thought process had gone about what is the practices in the other countries also, and we were quite in fact amazed or surprised to see that a lot of the so-called developed economies have a very, very stringent prosecution. And they, in UK, for just example, it is 14 years of rigorous imprisonment, and Australia also. So when we are looking at we thought that our jurisdiction of 7 years rigorous is quite heavy, and we are reducing it. Then we are also looking at but of course, it is very open, and if we can come up with some more suggestions, and it can always be looked into. That is
Actually, just to add what sir has told, the 15th section now deals with prosecution, and there are some subpart 35 offences. So in this budget, actually, we fully decriminalized 2 and 33 as partially decriminalized. The whole process of not considering at some prosecutions to be fully decriminalized is that those who actually fall into a serious kind of offences like falsification, false entry, search related non-compliance, those are the only part. Now coming to that, many countries have, whether we can have an alternative of penal provision rather than a prosecution. Actually, all these prosecution we have now inbuilt the fine. It is either imprisonment, which is rigorous, is now changed to simple, or some kind of fine also has been incorporated. That means court has been given a choice to put or convert that to a fine. So you can find out that in many and significantly large number of offences we have done that. Right.
Thank you so much, Prasanjit ji and Pitambar Das sahab. Yes, please. Good afternoon. I am Rajesh Khai. I am from JK Group. So we really appreciate this proposal of combination of assessment and penalty order. But there are apprehensions that each addition made in the assessment order will result into penalty. Even though there will not be any cash outflow on account of the penalty amount or interest thereon, but in case of large corporates, listed companies, what will happen? There are requirements of stock exchange disclosures. This will swell up the contingent liabilities in the books of the assessee as well as the CARO report. And this may hamper the issuance of refund for subsequent years, because huge liability will appear on the income tax portal equivalent to tax amount as well as penalty amount. And it is the past experience, that in each case, the AO levies the penalty wherever any addition has been made. So it is a welcome step, but some guidelines should be issued that on which edition penalty will be levied. Because AO considers that every edition is misreporting or underreporting of income. Just to supplement what Rajesh Saab is saying, sir, the problem is in the implementation. So there might be 14 years prosecution, imprisonment in some countries, but it is done with a lot of discretion at the implementation stage. Here, unfortunately, when some of these provisions come, we are not as confident that the implementation will be done in a very discreet manner, in a manner that is very fair, justified and so on. So therefore, probably till we reach that stage of maturity, shouldn't it be a little more tempered is the only request I think that all of us, and his point is very valid. What happens is every time there is a demand on the portal without a show cause notice, the adjustment of that demand in practical reality on the ground happens against all the refunds of returns that are getting filed. So once that demand gets created, even if it is stayed, even where 80%, 20% was payable till today, 80% was stayed, even that 80% stayed demand gets adjusted against the refund. And that is the reality of how most cases unfortunately today are.
Just to, Pankaj may correct me, the penalty amount will be kept, will not be counted towards the demand. So first of all, that is part there. And taking into account that again, it will not be suo motu that the assessing officer, the tax officer will be implementing or imposing the penalty. A show cause has to be given. And then a response has to be taken into. Then only he has to pass an order also along with the assessment order. So if you see it has to be a combined package. You see it that overall your litigation cost goes down, and your time factor goes down, your uncertainty goes down, and actually the outflow or the amount which about the refund, I think Pankaj or Pitambar will add to it about how it is being taken into account. That I will request Pankaj or Pitambar to respond.
Yeah, yes, some form of guidance might be helpful. Yeah.
Actually, I'll just.
Yeah.
Though, I think the sir has made that point very clear that even though this is a combined order of assessment and penalty, actual financial implications is restricted to only core tax demand of the assessment as far as recovery part is concerned. Now, that also, as you would have seen in the budget, announcement, that previously used to take 20%, that is now reduced to 10% of the core tax demand. That is only the minimum amount to be paid. Now, as far as this process, that this is a package, so already you know that assessment and penalty proceeding for a particular assessment year actually spills over to 8 or 9 years. So that part is taken care that at least from the day one, the assessor's litigation is limited to a very limited period, and where he will be, able to know his position as far as penalty and tax is concerned in a very shorter period of time. Now, another announcement here is that interest on penalty will not be leviable till the first appeal is disposed of. So that also has been cleared in the budget speech also. So basically, only thing is that yes, it will be in the book, it will be seen as a bigger figure, but nothing to be worried about, as sir has already assured about it, that as far as income tax department's interaction with that demand is considered, it is only 10% of the core tax demand. So therefore, nothing to be worried. Only thing that we wanted to give a certainty for this proceeding at a very, very faster pace. And once your quantum demand is deleted, then automatically penalty also is gone. So therefore, there is nothing to worry about this at this point in time. Then Pankaj may add something.
Thank you, Pitambar Dasji. Very, very heartening. Yes, sir.
No, sir has already clarified, Pitambar has also clarified. Just one more thing to add to it, that it's a very valid suggestion that refunds also get adjusted to So whether they should get adjusted to that penalty demand or not, that is a concern. We have taken note of it, and let us see how we approach. But then this is a valid concern that I would say. And other things they stand clarified. First appeal, no interest, no collection, and even where we were collecting 20%, that also reduces to 10%. So that way we have tried to moderate the thing to the extent possible, and there should not be any apprehension on this count. But how it operates exactly, that this provision is going to start from 1/4/2027. So there is some lead time, and then if there are any kind of rough edges to it, and whatever stakeholder suggestion that we receive in the meantime, that we will definitely consider and come out with more clarity on this.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. That is so nice of you. Questions?
Sir, I have a question regarding growing area of concern is backlog at the commissioner appeals level. So, though government has tried few checks and balances for introducing more people at the commissioner appeals to clear that backlog, but those are not moving at that pace which is required. Do we see any light on introducing a timeline on commissioner appeals closure, or probably like a DRP?
So I will respond to it. Like, suppose you are commissioner appeal and you are asked to issue 700 appeal orders in a year. So every working day you have to give 3-4 orders. You have to draft them, see them, do the hearing part. So the officers, they are doing tremendous amount of work. So that is one part of it. Second thing is that in this budget also we have tried to reduce litigation. How not to? We do not want to enter into litigation, and that we have made clear. Updated return, enabling updated return after a reassessment notice also, and then even after assessment is complete, then also one can avail immunity, pay taxes, avail immunity, and take a piece. So my point is, litigation is not a one-way street. Litigation is a two-way street. We are doing our part, and then we, like I mentioned somewhere else also, in 2008, since 2008 we are doing e-filing. It is 16 years. We are saying we do not want you to attach any document. Just file your return. What you file is, and then 99% of that, it is what you file is accepted. So that is the, as in the morning also, and sir also said trust-based governance. So my point is, it's a two-way street. So we are doing our bit to the extent possible. Yes, but then as far as that timeline you are saying, whether we are, so show me in one place where there is timeline on judiciary. It's a quasi judicial forum. Okay, he is, so suppose the taxpayer does not give replies or documents, you want him to pass an ex parte order? Obviously you will not want.
While we will continue the interaction,
Prasanjit sir wants to add.
Just to add what Pankaj just mentioned, that even for the last year, as you already pointed out, that a lot of efforts have been made by department. So even the last year also, the number of the appeals which were disposed of was much more than the numbers of appeals which were filed. And even this year also, by 31st December, the department has been able to dispose 35% more than the last year's appeals also. So it's not that all efforts are being made, but of course I mentioned that it has to be it's not a one-way street also. So sometimes, a lot of times, the taxpayers is a right forum. I would request also that a lot of time the taxpayers don't respond to the assessment orders, but when the orders are received, they go for the appeals. So that means they are aware of the proceedings, but they are not responding. So that is why sometimes this communication also leads to litigation also, miscommunications.
Sir, one small question.
Yes, Rakesh.
Sir, as talked by sir regarding the burden of proof, at the assessment level, the AOs are revenue minded and prejudiced not to consider the assessees, not to give the chance to the assessees. As per, they often verbally say that we have the direction from the seniors for generation of the revenues and make the assessments. So the ease of doing business, citizens' autonomy and the constitutional right is done away at the income tax office. They are so much high-headed not to consider the assessee, and in between the CAs and other things, you see, whole thing is so complicated कि एक बार आदमी जब फंस जाता है वो चक्करी काटता रहता है और टैक्स पे करता रह जाता है, उसके बाद अपील में कंसीडर होगा, ITAT में कंसीडर होगा. थैंक यू. राकेश गुप्ता.
हाँ जी सर, द टोन फ्रॉम द टॉप इज वेरी वेरी क्लियर एज आई एम सीइंग, but I am happy for any of you to answer his question. But I think the tone from the top is very
just a small point that it's not the correct picture. It may, because the number of the appeals which are filed, if 100 assessments are being made, the appeals are filed only in 30-40% numbers, maybe some plus minus 5-10% maybe there. So it's not that everywhere what the perception आप बता रहे हैं कि every case the assessment officers have been told to be harsh or to be pro-revenue. It is not like that, because there are certain checks and procedures are there. They are monitored by the supervisory officers. So it is, and a lot of systems are in place. So just it is a very sweeping statement, I would say.
Yeah, and I would, in all fairness and on balance, I would say there has been some 70-80 years of background and history. It takes time also for everything to change overnight, but I think the tone is clearly a very refreshing one. Yes, please.
While we continue with the interactions, I would just request Pranav sir to kindly honor our dignitaries who have joined a little late by presenting them with the green certificate.
Yes, so let me of course welcome Pitambar Das ji, Pankaj Jindal ji and Anupam Saab. So,
sir, requesting you to present the green certificate to Mr.
Sorry,
Pankaj
the way
Jindal.
it all happened. This is just
Mr. Pankaj Jindal, Joint Secretary, Central Board of Direct Taxes, Ministry of Finance. Mr. Anupam Prakash, Joint Secretary, Customs, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, Ministry of Finance. And Mr. Pitambar Das, Joint Secretary, Tax Policy Legislation, Central Board of Direct Taxes, Ministry of Finance.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Now we can continue with the interactions. Sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ritu Malhotra. Sir, this is with regard to the black money, and as the budget goes to show that that the government is recognizing the fact that there are certain inadvertent errors because of which the taxpayer is not intentionally has not made the intent of not disclosing, but because of some inadvertent errors the disclosures have not been made, and therefore the scheme is coming out for such people to come out and settle the matters. Unfortunately, sir, there are a lot of cases of similar nature which are now stuck in protracted litigation, where the intent was the money was not technically black money, it was just a non-disclosure in the returns, which has led to a lot of litigation, led to penalties and interest. I would not say, a suggestion, but something that can be looked at for such cases also, where probably Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, which was done for direct taxes, similar scheme where there is where the taxes on requisite taxes are paid, but the penal and the interest provisions are then given away, so that such people also, where the intent was never to stash away the money outside India, but there were non-compliances which were inadvertent. Something to those lines which would really be helpful, because on ground we see a lot of such situations where taxpayers are really getting because of the protracted litigation, they're getting involved in that. Thank you.
Yes, please.
So, no, there are two parts to it. One is that this scheme has come and this scheme is applicable up to 5 crore rupee disclosed asset but not declared, so that you can 1 lakh rupee fee is there and then you can disclose it and do away with it. So the point is that this whole process is a automatic one. You come, you file, and the system gives you a certificate. Okay. So the rules are yet to come, but then the way we have envisaged is that you make a declaration on this, whether it is undisclosed income up to 1 crore rupees or disclose undeclared assets up to 5 crore rupees. So it would be kind of an automated process. So the issue that you are raising, that for already where penalties they have been levied, so obviously that cannot be made an automated process, because there is already a order, there is an appeal, some application of mind has to be there. So the scheme that we have envisaged, the issues that you are pointing out, it does not fall into ambit of this scheme. Other suggestions if you want to make, so that you are welcome to make, that government will consider accordingly.
Absolutely, sir. The current scheme does not cover such situations, but the request was where there is already litigation going on. Such people also be given an opportunity to settle the matters by one-time payment of probably a fee, and the matter can be settled where there is no penalty then in such cases.
Please send your suggestions on it, and then we can consider, and then we can.
So before I.
No, I think it might be useful for us to kind of look at, and we covered a little bit, but I think your perspective would be extremely helpful. You've gone about making this amendment to section 67, okay, whereby now bonded warehousing, I think it's a big change. Goods can move from any bonded warehouse without any intimation, without any prior approval. Okay. What is it that you guys are envisaging? Whether it will cover SEZs, whether it will cover all sorts of bonded warehouses, whether, I mean, if you can throw some light on that, that will be helpful.
So thank you. Actually, this is one of the amendment which is again trusting the taxpayer in that line.
Yeah.
So our warehouse operations and the licensee and the warehouse keeper, they were having different responsibilities. Now what we have done in this particular warehousing provision by this amendment, we are trying to create trust-based mechanisms so that the intimation by warehouse keeper will be sufficient instead of taking approvals from the officer. So routine approval need not be taken. Obviously, this will be backed up by digital architecture. So there will be some proper account keeping which is expected. Obviously, it is there at present also. He will be moving out cargo from one warehouse to another warehouse. Again, no approval is required. Obviously, some regulation will be framed around this line so that digital architecture suitably complements such type of officer driven approvals. So obviously e-seal movement probably will be there. When we come out with detailed regulation, it will capture every contours of it, and there will be consultation for framing regulations. So that aspect has been kept in mind while we are designing this warehouse operation. Secondly, for the e-commerce, if we see, there is a different enablement in a different section. There the custody is being built in. It is different from warehousing regulation. And two trust based again mechanism. One is for the courier sector in different section, and one for the normal taxpayer in another different section, where the penalty is being replaced by the term charge so that the penal connotation is removed. And similarly for the courier operations, the permission and re-export is automated and smooth, and the operation become efficient and profitable for the small MSME type of supplier who send their goods get rejected again to be sent. So this enablement will bring efficiency. So these three touch points are there. One is warehouse centric, one is courier centric, and other is general taxpayer centric. The litigation will be reduced with these measures, I suppose.
Thank you so much, Anupam. Yes, sorry,
Thank you for this very grateful session. My question is upon direct taxation. So many assessments are ongoing before my born and after my born and currently when I'm 36-year old, and I guess in future 10 years after assessment is ongoing, litigation is ongoing. But sir, Prasanji sir, because you are there, we have so very rare chance to meet you by face to face and have opportunity to ask such fair questions. Is there any future plan of government, of department, that there is no assessments? No assessment means there are so many countries, taxpayer pays the taxes in corporate, as an individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, partnership, in any form. But government trusts that taxpayer in GST or in direct taxation, that you pay tax, there is no assessment, taxpayer is free of mind, he focuses on his business, he focuses on his working capital, and they perform their contribution to economy and to the government as well, because he collect taxes from the salaried person as well as a TDS form, he collect from the customers in form of GST and pays to the government. But still there is no trust or low trust with the SSC or with the taxpayer that you come our office and present your case that you are honest. So is there any picture after 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, or even after 50 years that there is no assessment like other countries and we can make a good economy with the trust built with the taxpayer and SSCs? This is just a small form of my question. Second sir, sorry sir. Another, when I reach office, when I reach with the people of new Gen Zs, they use AI, they use Copilot, they use Gemini. Is there any opportunity or is there any form that in taxation we can incorporate, not for the assessment part, for the awareness part, that any SSC, every SSC or every taxpayer knows that this is a taxation, and even a chai wala got know that the chai he is making, the milk he purchases, the sugar he buy of branded sugar, he pay this amount of tax and this is the actual cost of his, so that he can make pricing and fair pricing with the customers as well. Thank you, sir.
So there are two parts of your question, which are already, I'm happy that you asked this question. First of all, if we take the numbers, almost 9 crores tax returns are filed and only 0.08%, and that is almost returns are processed for, are picked up for scrutiny. So that is a very, very, very small, minuscule number. So trust-based governance is, we are believing that the tax department believes, the government believes that 99.998% of the taxpayers are, whatever they say, it is being accepted. So that is one. Number two, then again the scenario comes where I talk about scenarios where the tax department finds that finds that there are some discrepancies in the tax returns. So now what we mentioned earlier also, what the tax department is doing is that it is nudging. So we are nudging the taxpayer that we have found that, see, we have seen that there are some mistakes in your returns. Please update. So the updated returns are already there, and those updated returns are not picked up for scrutiny. So whatever you update it is accepted, and then so already things are in process, already trust-based governance in place. But to say that it will become zero is nowhere in the world. Let me tell you, there's nowhere in the world it is zero assessment proceedings. It is one. India is one. And again, coming to the second part of the question is about the pre-filled. You're already getting a pre-filled returns. You are getting your AIS. You are getting your 26 AS. You already know what your transactions are. So all these tell you that these transactions, this belongs to you. You access it, and when you're going to file your return of income, it is already pre-filled with the option of making changes. So all these, and with the coming of the new forms, it will become more robust and become more So see, ultimately it is a two-way. That is, the taxpayers also have certain duties also. So, and that duty is, and the tax department is to be a facilitator, to be a hand-holding. That is being done. I may not say that it may be the best system, but it is being enhanced. It is being done on the basis issues of the inputs. It is being improved, but systems and the approach is already there. And if you can give up some scenarios and some paper with through the FICCI, it can also be considered. How do you feel that it can be make more robust? We are open to that.
So just to add, in our direct taxation, in corporate taxation, there is any option. There we have option of faceless assessments. But why not in GST? Because in GST still we are issuing notices and doing assessment, doing audits, all these things up to tribunal, up to high court level. There are so many litigations there. But is there any possibility after numerous of years or numerous of time that we have a faceless assessment in GST as well, so that taxpayer can relieve? Thank you.
Sir, with your permission. So, if we talk about the indirect tax system, there are two taxes, main taxes. One is GST, while other is customs. First, I will touch upon customs. The customs, there is already provision in Act. It talks about self-assessment by the taxpayer. So, most of the tax is paid on the basis of self-assessment. Around 85% it is self-assessed, self-paid. Only 15% is intervened. If you see the finance minister's speech this year, it talks about the whole of government approach, while where custom is the front end and is implementing requirement of different department agencies. And Honorable Finance Minister specifically indicated that around 70% of the cargo is required to be checked because of the different departments' requirement, whether it is a permission, license, some type of order, some type of certificate. So that approach has been taken note of. There is a digital single touch point is created for the customs, and all those agencies, and including plant quarantine, animal quarantine, FSSAI, they will be interacting through only this single touch point. Any query, any response to that query, all the history will be available in single portal of the taxpayer. He will be having all his previous licenses, clearances made, all this type of data in the single place. It will make the business easier for the taxpayer. So that is customs part of it and the present direction from the government. For the GST side, if you see, it is mainly the return based approach in GST. There is no assessment. It's the assessed tax paid by taxpayer for which he files return, and the correction time is up to annual return, which is to be filed after certain duration after end of the financial year. So till November he can make correction in the annual return. So that mechanism also exists in GST. We may not say itself as a faceless assessment or self-assessment, but it is akin to that process and an approach. So the whole of government approach is basically to have a mechanism so that there is a trust to taxpayer, the penal consequences are limited, and the criminalization aspect is also not there to that extent. Thank you.
I'll just add just one more thing on the GST side, just to what Mr. Prakash said. It's a great kind of question. I mean, to start off with, even under GST, the scrutiny afterwards, I mean, is not more than, I think, 1%. Okay. But in GST, you need to realize that there is a central government and there are several state governments, and the number of registrations also are more. And under this old state government sales taxes, where assessments were kind of carrying on, they are trying to kind of get a risk-based system to kind of look at it. So some states have kind of done well. Some states have and reduced the number of scrutinies subsequently. I'm sure over the next couple of years that will kind of come through. And to my mind, I think it's important for us to realize on the GST that it's a evolving subject, and hopefully we'll get there. But it's a good suggestion and a good list to come with.
Very nice. I like your utopian thought that no assessments will ever be made. I don't know what finally the answer was, but let me put it this way. Hopefully we move towards that. But for that, taxpayers also need to reciprocate. And intermediaries, all the consultants and the entire ecosystem also needs to be to that extent fair, honest and whatever. So hopefully we are moving in that direction. And while they'll probably not be 100% honest citizens ever, but the stigma attached to that 1% who does something wrong from ourselves will be so great that the government will not be required to correct them or keep them in check. Pankaj ji wants to say something.
I just want to know, हिंदुस्तान में महाराष्ट्र में एक जगह है शनि सिंगनापुर, ठीक है, वहां पे लोग रात को अपने घर के दरवाजे खोल के सोते हैं, शायद बहुत से घरों में दरवाजा ही नहीं, ठीक है, हम भी चाहेंगे कि ऐसे ही हो, है ना, लेकिन
very good analogy, I must say.
Sir, just to want to add into this, when the assessments and audits are going on, so we have seen a different approach by the different states, by the different officers. So sometimes they want to cross the boundaries, they want to cross the jurisdictions also. So is there any guidelines for them to continue or to remain in their jurisdictions? So we have seen a problems in the audit of the input service distributor, where the different recipient states want to go beyond their jurisdiction and want to do the audit of the ISD distributor state also. They want to bring each and every documents of the ISD distributor state in their states, and in this way, if we are registered in more than 10 states, then you can understand the problems of the dealers in presenting all this data. And so what type of message is there for the jurisdictional officers to on this guidelines?
Okay, I think it's an issue. Obviously, it is not backed by law necessarily. I think, I mean, please do send a note on this. The reason why I'm kind of calling that out is that the legislation works in a certain framework. At the ground level, I agree that we've heard about these instances whereby, you know, there is maybe questioning done where at least the jurisdiction is somewhere else. We can go back to the government to get some clarity on the administration part.
Adding one thing in this, when there is suo motu cancellation of the number of the supplier, the tax supplier is not traceable, the taxes are recovered from the buyer. And when the honorable apex courts had decided these issues, why the tax department don't make it a statute to decide the similar cases? The litigations go on and they go on coercion to the buyer. Similarly, in the income tax also, in Ashish Agrawal versus Union of India, the cases were opened from 2014 to 15 onwards, and the taxpayers and assessees were not satisfied as per the conditions of the Supreme Court. Similarly, there are a number of statutes where the courts has been deciding, but the departments never welcome to these decisions and try to make a dispute resolution to the issues, and they continues with the prejudice of their laws and their mindset of the department and the revenue oriented approach. Thank you.
On that GST issue, I will point out, but this forum was only for direct tax and indirect side, only the custom portion. But FICCI is already examining and in the process of submitting a proposal to Government of India on the reforms in GST and what changes we can do. So please do write to FICCI on that. And we have a separate group for that where all this discussion is taking place, and we are taking necessary steps.
I will humbly say the departments are to be challenged on the rights of the assessees on certain issues for the ease of doing business and growth in business towards the Viksit Bharat. Only coercion and high-headedness of the departments cannot take our country ahead.
May I come into a question which is a little, on direct taxes, Vidurpuri, just a technical question, and to understand, there is an interesting scheme or an exemption which is coming for or proposed for non-resident
in a particular scheme. I am assuming that is for the electronic industries or whichever industry there would be. It talks about 5-year exemption since the time the non-resident first steps into India. There is also a clause which I was trying to understand that non-resident must be a non-resident for the past 5 years. What is the rationale of that capping? Have I missed something, or is there something that is, there is a cap? If I've read it correctly, and
this is exactly the question of how to tax an expat who comes for a research work or some kind of education or any technological help in India. So that was a issue that generally the taxation principle is that the residents are taxed on his worldwide income, whereas the non-residents are taxed in a limited way for the income that is sourced in India. So that is the question is that then this residency rule changes depending on the number of days that you stay in India. For example, the general, I will not go to very detail, 182 days and more if you stay in India, you become a resident at birth. Then there is in 4 years time, you should not stay for more than 365, that is there. So the question is that somebody comes as a researcher to India, then he is supposed to stay for a longer time. Then the problem arises that will expose him for a global income to be taxed in India because of his longer stay period in India. So basically this proposal is to address this issue that if you are coming under a government notified scheme for certain kind of notified activities in India, being a professional, your stay up to 5 years will not be entitled for India to tax your income on a global basis. So basically you will be taxed only on Indian sourced income for this 5 years of stay. So the question is why that cap of somebody previous has to be there, that there is a scope of even misutilizing, because 6 months time is a very small window. Somebody can be an Indian, stays say in UAE for 6 months, come back as a non-resident. So not to misuse and to actually give this kind of benefit to a actual non-resident, which is say a Harvard professor coming to India to teach in IITs for next 5 years, he will be staying here, making a research here. Those kind of activity has to be covered here. So therefore there is a cap of not misutilizing by flouting the days. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have 2 points to make. Okay. One by one. Yeah, ma'am. Maybe you can start.
Hi, good afternoon all. My query is relating to indirect tax announcements. So there has been an announcement which says supply from SEZ to a DTA would be given a one-time relief on account of the tariff changes. So while I understand the scheme is yet to be reissued and there is a deliberation around it, but any thoughts around what kind of a relief will it, when it says one time, does it mean once in a year? It says for manufacturing unit, are there plans to also include services sector, and if they want to dispose of their assets from DTA, SEZ to a DTA? So a few queries relating to this. I have another question on GST, but I'm happy to hear your response to this.
Actually, the intention has been clarified in the FMC speech. The detailed modalities are yet to be worked out. So, intention is to give some type of concession in view of strained situation, so that the SEZ units, they can clear their goods on to DTA. And there was earlier demand also from the industry that there should be duty on duty foregone basis. So all these aspects will be covered when we are finalizing the scheme as such.
And also see about
yeah.
That will also make effect.
Thanks.
So it basically is, I think, a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I think we'll need to just wait for the fine print.
So
but your GST question.
Yeah.
Rajesh ji.
On the just another quick question on the GST. So the place of supply for intermediary has been omitted, and this will be effective from when the bill is enacted. However, is there any plan to fix a timeline from when it will be effective? Any relief for the past period where intermediaries have been paying taxes? Any thoughts around this?
Okay. We'll need to check. Okay.
Place of supply when
the intermediary, when will it be made effective?
The day
the day President signs the finance bill, so the whole act will be applicable for that.
Okay, because there have been some speculation that it may be effective from 1st of April 2026.
So generally, as per now, okay, the expectation is that it should be when the finance bill gets the assent of the, I mean, it becomes an act. Okay, but in the past, I think they have at times notified a date, even for IGST amendments. An earlier interaction seemed to indicate that it might be at a upon the assent of the, I mean, or getting enactment of the bill. But we'll need to get some clarity on this further.
Sure.
Rajesh ji. Thank you. So I have 2 points on direct tax proposals. One on changes in MAT. So this proposal is in a way reducing the litigation also on account of deduction and exemptions. So most of the companies have moved to lower tax regime earlier, and now we are incentivizing the companies who have not moved to lower tax regime. So this question that benefit of set off of accumulated MAT credit has been restricted to the companies which will move to lower tax regime from 26-27 only. So there is an answer in the FAQ that why those companies are not being allowed to set off the MAT credit. So sir, one answer is given that they are already paying tax at a lower rate other than the other than the companies under the low tax regime. But sir, the companies which are in the low tax regime, they are already paying tax at the rate of 17.16%. If they are paying under MAT, even if they are paying under normal tax, even then their tax liability is reduced to 17.16%. Our industry suggestion is that this benefit of set off of MAT credit should also be given to the companies who have moved to lower tax regime earlier, because otherwise it will be a sort of penalty to those who have voluntarily shifted, who have contributed to litigation, reduction in litigation on account of deduction and exemptions. One point this. Second point this, on account of expenditure, deduction of expenditure on account of employee contribution to PFESI. This section has swung. Earlier it was being disallowed. Then again it was clarified, no, it will be it has been brought in the statute. Now government has accepted that there is no point in keeping. So industry suggestion is that the past litigation on this account should be brought to a halt. Otherwise it will be beneficial from this next year onwards, but litigation will continue on this aspect. So suggestion is that it should be means some guidelines or some instruction should be issued on this. So one point on the GST, I don't know it is relevant here or not. Section 54(6), even though council in the rules it has already been provided that inverted duty structure will be issued on provisional basis. So provisional basis means provisional basis, but our experience is that after this GST 2.0 reforms, some industries have been brought under the inverted duty structure. So applications have been filed on a monthly basis. It was committed that refund will be granted within 7 days, but across the countries refunds are not being granted irrespective of the applications are in order. So everywhere automation has been made, digitization has been made. So can it be made, this refund can be issued automatically without any human intervention? Thank you. So maybe a MAT point, Pankaj, you will like to answer. Level playing field for earlier new regime countries.
So Matt, I will start with a question to you. You can pay taxes under old regime, you can pay taxes under new regime. You would be computing your tax liability in both the regimes. Have you paid a single penny extra after that computation? Obviously you would have paid the lower thing. That is my first thing. So the companies which have come, they have come on their own. Today we are saying that no, the tax credit would be allowed only in the new regime. So that means the scheme, you have to see the scheme has changed. It has changed. Three components, they are there, essential components. MAT is made final, MAT rate is reduced, then the credit is allowed only in the new regime. Credit is allowed up to an extent. So somebody who wants to utilize that credit, so he has to per force come to the new regime. So when you use some element of, when you take away the no option of the taxpayer, when you take away the discretion of the taxpayer, so we have tried to build in a policy which is as smooth as possible. But then there is essential difference between the companies which moved earlier and forgot their credit because it was in their interest to do so. Today, the second leg of companies who are being asked to move, or whenever they want, they can move, but the MAT final in the old and accumulated credit set off only in the new. So these kinds of companies, so the scheme does not operate as it was operating for the earlier taxpayer. So there is essential grounds of differences between two sets of companies. That is. That loss is out of their books for last 5 years. So it's the loss is something they have already forgotten. So it is, you are trying to, your question is like, can you revive something which is gone? Can you bring life to something which is dead? So it is not. Honey, that is what I said. So level playing field, we would be very happy to provide, provided the both companies, both sets of companies, they are at the same level. They are not at same level. That is what I wanted to emphasize.
Your second question, Pitambar Das ji is answering.
This is regarding your query on PF and ESI. You must understand that there are two components. One is employer's contribution and that is employee's contribution. Employer contribution, there was no issue because it was allowed to till the date of filing of return. Due date of return. So you are getting this employee's contribution because you receive that money. That money becomes your income under section 224. Deemed income. When you pay, then you get a set off against your income. So that was the scheme. So now thing is that there was a requirement that time under the PF Act to regulate this thing more in favor of the employees, that the companies may defer not paying this thing. So therefore, it was made that 15th of next month, which is the due date for crediting to the employee's account, they should do it to get that benefit under this thing. So why? So that was actually going in what the Supreme Court in checkmate case had decided in favor of revenue. That this is the thing that you have to pay in next month by 15th or in grace period time. So, but in the meanwhile, some development, because the regulations are not in the PF and ESI Act enough that time. So they requested the Income Tax Department to regulate on behalf of them, like MSME that we are regulating in 43. So now that there is adequate regulation has been given in their act of PF and ESI for not depositing in time. So those regulations should not happen in the Income Tax Act because it is actually adding to the burden. So basically what we are doing, we are actually aligning both these payments till the due date for the purpose of tax. So that clarity we have given. So we are not jumping into regulating which the PF and ESI is already started regulating. That's
very fair. On GST,
I think we can note down the suggestion because this is very good suggestion based on the automation technology. We can just pass on the suggestion to our GST department for the look at it.
Great. Sorry, yeah.
So, sir, as he mentioned that there is a lot of accumulation that is happening on account of GST 2.0 implementation. So that major accumulation is also on account of input services, which are currently being taxed at 18%. So any plans of including refund of input services as well under inverted duty structure, sir?
Yeah, so this suggestion is going through from the FICCI side. Right now, the functionaries here kind of don't look at GST, but this suggestion is kind of, and if you want to kind of add on any suggestion into, please do send it.
Yeah, just one last question someone had, just one last one. Yeah. Oh, yes. I'll come to you.
The government is trying to develop the inland waterways ecosystem. So there's an presumptive tonnage tax. So how this would be implemented, if you could elaborate this further.
Presumptive tonnage tax. Where is this question coming? Yes, presumptive tonnage tax. Just can you please repeat the?
No, how this would be implemented? Like it's going to be a game changer. So if you could elaborate this.
For inland waterways, how it is going to be implemented. So no, if you can make your question clearer, because tonnage tax scheme is already inbuilt and it is a very detailed one, and we have only enabled it for inland waterways. And then this time the amendments that we are proposing in Income Tax Act 2025,
because 5% of the.
My point is that the amendments which are proposing now, they are only because the tonnage tax company and then these inland vessels, they are regulated by different regulators. So DG Shipping, it was regulating that tonnage tax company, and inland waterways, they are regulated by Inland Waterways Authority. So because the authorities are different, so we are enabling those authorities in that we are giving those references to those authorities in the new Income Tax Act. So that is the only purpose of the amendments that we have proposed. Otherwise, inland waterways, the whatever tonnage tax provisions they apply, as they apply to a tonnage tax company, they apply to an inland waterways company. So if there are any challenges or issues to that, maybe if you can make it clearer, then we would.
Just very last, we are running out of time. Yeah.
Very good afternoon to all of you, sir. Karan Sharma from Dynamite News. Actually, sir, for youngsters like me, confusion going on around across the nation. Since Donald Trump has told about the trade deal with us, sir, actually, I wanted to know whether the tariff windows have come down from 50% to 18%, or that the reciprocal part has been down to 18%. And has the deal been finalized between the countries, or has it to be finalized yet? And how long will it take to get signed?
Anupamji, would you want to take it or skip it? Whatever, I'll leave it to you.
So let us wait the notification from Department of Commerce. We can just wait for the outcome.
Yeah, it's.
So just wanted to clear the confusion about that tariff window.
I would just like to add one thing. This is not a subject which relates to direct taxes. Okay. But just to add, Donald Trump has settled the STT. Okay.
Very well said. I think we are really out of time.
Sir, in some services, the 18% is GST, and after paying 18% GST, then income tax is up to 30%. So total tax become 50% approx. So those who are paying GST, they should be given some rebate on paying income tax. So government should consider this, because this is very high rate of taxes for the professionals and the self-employed. Thank you.
It's a pass-through, is what sir is saying. Okay, I think we should quickly end this. Thank you so very much, Prasanjit ji. Really appreciate for your frank and such nice patient replies. Pankaj ji, Anupam ji, and Pitambar Das ji. I wouldn't take too much of your time. Thank you everyone. Really appreciate. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
But we have to have lunch. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Yes. Right. Yes, we have to join for lunch. Pankaj ji.
quick grab.